Senator Marco Rubio. Thank you. Thank you, Dallas. Thank you for having me today. Thank you. Thank you. Man, this is an important election. I'm so glad to be here in Big D. Everything's bigger in Texas. It's the only place that makes Florida seem small. Such a big place. So thank you for coming. This is a huge election. All right? It's as big as this crowd. This is how big and important this election is. That's why we're getting closer now. These votes are starting to count. What you're going to do on Tuesday is not a poll. It is a vote. It counts. And what we are being asked to choose is not just the future of our country. That is ultimately what this election is about. But also the future of the conservative movement. Of what it means to be a conservative in the 21st century. For 36 years, for 36 years, the conservative movement after the Reagan Revolution has been about limited government and about free enterprise and about a strong national defense. That was the Reagan Revolution. It changed the country in a way that re-embraced all of the principles that made us the greatest country in the world. But now, we are being asked to choose once again, what will it mean in the 21st century? So if the polls are to be believed, and the election results from some of these states continue to go, then we have to view what will the conservative movement be like if the front runner in this race right now, Donald Trump, is put in charge of the conservative movement. So last night we had a chance to talk about that. It's time to pull his mask off so that people can see what we are dealing with here. What we are dealing with here, my friends, is a con artist. He is a con artist. First of all, he runs on this idea that he is fighting for the little guy. But he has spent his entire career sticking it to the little guy. His entire career. All right, every business that he's ever run that's gone bankrupt. I mean, this guy bankrupted a casino. How do you bankrupt a casino? How do you bankrupt a casino? All right, but when all of these other projects went bankrupt, you know the first people that didn't get paid? The electricians and the plumbers and the subcontractors. Some of them went out of business because he didn't pay them. He says he's fighting for the little guy. What about the students that signed up for Trump University? A fake school. A fake school. Some of them took out loans. They told them, go max your credit cards. $36,000. And at the end of the course, the only thing you got was a paper certificate and a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. He says he's fighting for the little guy, but in Florida, my home state, right now, he is hiring workers from other countries because he claims no Americans will do those jobs. This is the guy that says he's fighting to protect the American worker. In Florida, there are 300 people that said, we'll take those jobs, Americans. He doesn't hire them. Instead, he brings in workers from abroad to do those jobs, and he goes on television saying, oh, we can't find qualified people to do that work. And there are qualified people raising their hands saying, we'll do that work. We have a guy that last night spent literally 30 seconds defending Planned Parenthood. He did it better than Harry Reid does it. This is what's trying to take over the conservative movement. It is time to open our eyes and see what's happening here. For the first time in 36 years, if Donald Trump is elected, the conservative movement will be headed up by somebody who says that when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, he's not taking sides. Well, I'm taking sides. I'm with Israel. We had a guy yesterday that was saying on the stage, oh, if you don't support government takeover of healthcare, then you're in favor of letting people die in the streets. Well, I've heard that before in the Democratic debate. from Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So it's time. The charade is up. This is a con job where he's going to Americans that are struggling, Americans that are hurting, and he's implying, I'm fighting for you because I'm a tough guy. A tough guy? This guy inherited $200 million. He's never faced any struggle. He's never faced. The other day he told somebody, a protester, I'm going to punch you in the face. Donald Trump has never punched anyone in the face. Donald Trump was the first guy that begged for Secret Service protection. First guy. He's never punched anyone in the face. He inherited $200 million. I said it last night. If he had not inherited $200 million right now, he would be selling watches in Times Square or be doing one of those infomercials on Saturday morning where he promises to teach you how to flip properties, right? So we unmasked him last night. And let me tell you, it's time for you to unmask him as well. I bet you all know. You all have friends. You all have friends that are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. Friends, do not let friends vote for con artists. All right? So, you want to have a little fun? All right. What does Donald Trump do when things go wrong? He takes to Twitter. I have them right here. Let's read some. You'll have fun. All right, number one. Here's the first one. Lightweight Marco Rubio was working hard last night. This is true. The problem is, he is a chalker. And once a chalker, always a choker. I guess that's what he meant to say. He spelled choker, C-H-O-K-E-R, chalker. He called me Mr. Meltdown. Let me tell you something. Last night in the debate, during one of the breaks, two of the breaks, he went backstage. He was having a meltdown. First, he had this little makeup thing applying like makeup around his mustache because he had one of those sweat mustaches. Then he asked for a full-length mirror. I don't know why, because the podium goes up to here, but he wanted a full-length mirror. Maybe to make sure his pants weren't wet. I don't know. Then I see him pacing back and forth, and then he's huddled in the corner talking to somebody. He's like waving his arms up and down, and the person's trying to calm him down. So, anyway. But I'm a chalker. All right. Next tweet. Lightweight chalker Marco Rubio looks like a little boy on stage, not presidential material. He meant to say lightweight, but he spelled it L-E-I-G-H-T. So he got that wrong. Looks like a little boy on stage. It's not that I look like a little boy. I wouldn't even be the youngest president, but he would be the oldest president ever elected. And it's like an 8-year term, so you start to worry. All right. Last one. Wow, every poll said I won the debate last night. No, this was him about himself, okay? Great honor. I think he meant to say great honor. I don't know how he got that wrong because the E and the O were nowhere near each other on the keyboard. Great honor. All right. So, here's what that's what I'm thinking. So how does this guy, not in one tweet, 3 tweets, misspell words so badly? And I only reached 2 conclusions. Number one, that's how they spell those words at the Wharton School of Business, where he went. Or number 2, just like Trump Tower, he must have hired a foreign worker to do his own tweets. All right? So, guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. A guy who has made a career out of telling people lies so that they come in and buy his product or whatever he does. You ever heard of Trump vodka? You have? Well, it isn't around anymore. Or Trump mattress, or Trump air, or Trump ice, or Trump water. Those are all businesses that are gone because they were disasters. Okay? Trump hot air, yeah. So we cannot allow the conservative movement to be taken over by a con artist because the stakes are too high. This country faces an election in which our very identity as a people is at stake. For over 2 centuries, this has been a special country, unique in the history of all mankind. But that was never an accident. That happened because the people who came before us made the right choices. and incredible sacrifices. And now the time has come for this generation to do its part. And here's what I want you to believe, and it's not a slogan. It is the truth. If we do what needs to be done right now in this election, we have a chance to make this nation greater and more prosperous and freer than it has ever been in its history. That is the opportunity before us. But not if we stay on the road that we are on right now. Not if Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton wins this election. And they will win this election if we do not nominate the right person. And there is a reason why the media is pulling its punches when it comes to Donald Trump. Look, I had articles written about me that I, had 10 traffic tickets, or my wife had traffic tickets because of a red light camera. That's another scam that we should get rid of, the red light camera sign. I had a reporter go back and find that when I was 18 years old, friends and I went to a park after. I see some young kids here. I am against this, but I'm going to tell you what I did when I was 18. We went to drink beer in a park after hours at 18, okay? I knew you would cheer that in Texas. You're cheering. But this guy, Donald Trump, has a lawsuit against him for fraud. You don't hear anything. It's crickets. Because they know, first of all, they know if this guy's the nominee, we're going to have someone as the Republican nominee that defends Planned Parenthood, as someone who defends single payer for health care, as someone who won't take sides on Israel's side against the Palestinians. This is a dream for them. And number two, because they know the minute he gets the nomination, they will shred him to pieces. And so they are looking for this. They are encouraging this to happen. We cannot nominate someone that is going to get shredded to pieces. Because the consequences are Bernie Sanders, a socialist, or Hillary Clinton, someone who was unqualified to be commander-in-chief, who put classified information on her email server, someone who lied to the families of the victims of Benghazi, and anyone who lies to the family of people who have lost their loved ones in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. We cannot lose this election. You nominate me, we will not lose this election. You nominate me, not only will you have a real conservative, you will have a conservative that unites the Republican Party and brings us together after this circus act we've had to live with for 9 months. And you will have someone that will grow this party, not by changing our principles. We are going to take our principles to people who are living today the way that I grew up. People who have lived paycheck to paycheck like I've lived. People that have had to borrow money to go to school, real schools, not fake universities. Like people who are trying to raise their families in the 21st century, and how hard it's become to do that, to instill in your children the right values, the values they teach in our churches, instead of the values that they ram down our throats in popular culture. We are going to unite the conservative movement, and we are going to grow it, and we will win this election when we do. And then we have a lot of work to do because we have a lot of damage to undo. First of all, you elect me president. For the first time in 8 years, you will have a president that protects and defends and follows the Constitution of the United States of America. On my first day in office, as soon as I walk into the Oval Office, I will repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. You will have a president that defends your First Amendment right to live out the teachings of your faith. Not just to believe whatever you want, but to live out those teachings in every aspect of your life. And you will have a president that defends your Second Amendment right to protect yourself and your family. You will have a president, once again, that believes that the federal government is supposed to be a limited one. That most of the answers in our society don't belong to government. They belong in our lives, in our homes, in our families. The most important job I will ever have, the most important job you will ever have, is the job of a husband and a wife, of a father and a mother. That is where the real difference is made in America. And if government has a role, it is probably at the state level, not at the federal level. You will have a president that follows and honors and believes in the 10th Amendment, which means power belongs to the people through the states, not at the federal government. You will have a president that believes that the Constitution is not a living and breathing document designed to mean whatever you want it to mean. If it means whatever you want it to mean, it means nothing. The Constitution is supposed to be applied as originally meant, which means when I'm President of the United States, I will appoint people to the Supreme Court like Justice Scalia, God rest his soul, who understood the Constitution is to be applied according to its original meaning. There's a way to change the Constitution. It's not the court system. It's called Article 5. And I think there should be 2 changes to the Constitution, 2 additions. We need a balanced budget amendment, and we need term limits on Congress and term limits on judges. You elect me president, you will have a president that believes in free enterprise again. Real free enterprise, not corporatism. Not a system in which the people who have made all the money use their influence over politicians to get the laws they want that leaves them in power and leaves everybody else out. Now listen, my mother and father were not rich people. My father was a bartender at hotels. My mother was a maid. The kind of people Donald Trump hires from other countries. That was the job my parents had. And my parents never made a lot of money, but they achieved the American dream. And you know why they had a job? They had a job because someone was willing to invest money and risk it to open up a hotel. This is how we pull people up in this country, through economic growth, by making America the best place on earth to start a business or to grow one. And that's why we need to fix our tax code and roll back regulations and fully utilize our energy resources and balance our budget and repeal and replace Obamacare once and for all. I believe in free enterprise as the son of a bartender and a maid, because free enterprise is the only economic model in the history of the world where you can make poor people richer and you don't have to make rich people poorer. You can lift everyone up without pulling anyone down. You elect me president of the United States, and you will have a president that will once again keep this country safe. Not the disaster we have now under this failed commander-in-chief. The world is a very dangerous place right now, more dangerous than it was 7 years ago. You have a lunatic in North Korea with nuclear weapons and long-range rockets. The Chinese government hacks our computers, steals our inventions, and is massively building up their military. They're taking over the South China Sea. It's the most important shipping lane in the world. You see what Vladimir Putin is doing in Europe and in the Middle East. Iran is going to get $100 billion of sanctions relief, which they're not going to use to build orphanages. They're not going to use that money to build hospitals and orphanages. They're going to use that money to buy or build a nuclear weapon. And radical Islamic jihadists are spreading throughout the world, especially ISIS, that now has affiliates in over a dozen countries. And in the face of this growing danger, Barack Obama's gutting our military. Our army will soon be smaller than it has been since the end of World War II. The Navy will soon be the smallest it has been in 100 years. And the Air Force will soon be the smallest it has been in our history. This is unfair. This is unwise. This is risky. This is dangerous. It leaves us exposed. It leaves us vulnerable. And it's unsafe, and it's unfair to our men and women in uniform. They're still going into harm's way, but now with older weapons and less people fighting alongside them. And by the way, with rules of engagement that do not allow them to win. That will all change when I'm president. When I'm president of the United States, we are going to undertake a Reagan-style rebuilding of the United States military. Barack Obama is trying to close Guantanamo, even though he knows that about 30% of the people he's released from there have gone right back to terrorism. Spanish police just arrested someone the other day that was released from Guantanamo that was now trying to re-incite terror. And so this is why I'm saying the war on terror is a fake war right now. It's not a real war on terror. You elect me president, we're going to have a real war on terror. The best intelligence agencies in the world are going to find the terrorists. The best military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of these terrorists alive, they're not going to have the right to remain silent. They're not getting a court hearing in Manhattan. They're not going to some jail in Texas. They are going to Guantanamo, and we will find out everything they know. You elect me President of the United States, and we will be an ally to our allies once again. Coming back to the issue of Israel. Israel is the only pro-American, free enterprise democracy in the Middle East. The only one. And this notion that Mr. Trump has that we're going to be neutral is absurd. We are going to be on Israel's side, and everyone's going to know that on my first day in office. You know how? Because as soon as I walk into the Oval Office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. And we're going to take care of our veterans again. What's happening now is a travesty. It's immoral. Last week, USA Today, headline, I'm paraphrasing, but it said this: calls to VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. This is outrageous. No one's going to get fired over this. Not under Barack Obama. When I'm President of the United States, if you are not doing a good job at the VA, you will lose your job. You will be fired. My brother's a veteran. I know many of you are. In fact, if you're a veteran, will you raise your hand so we can thank you for your service? Thank you. My brother was a Green Beret, 7 Special Forces, 68 through 71. He jumped out of an airplane one day in a practice jump, landed badly, knocked out his front teeth. And so every few years he has to do a dental claim with the VA, and it's a nightmare. He has to fight with them constantly. 1 out of 4 calls to my Senate office are VA claims. They act like we're doing them a favor. We're not doing veterans a favor. They did us the favor. They took care of us. We now need to take care of them. And when I'm president, we will. Because when I am president, veterans will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that they want to go to. And by the way, many of our veterans don't stop serving once they come home. You go to any police station or fire station in America, you're going to see veterans working there. And I'm so tired of all these articles about how bad the police is and this. Let me tell you something. I thank God every single day for our firefighters, for our police officers, and for what they do for us. So as you can see, the stakes are incredibly high. Because 2016 is not just an election, it is a referendum. It is a choice about what kind of country will America be. If we stay on the road we are on right now, if we turn the conservative movement over to people that are not conservatives, then I'm telling you that our children will be the first Americans in history that will inherit a country from their parents worse off than the ones their parents inherited. We're going to be the first Americans that leave our kids worse off than ourselves. That is how high the stakes are in this campaign. We cannot get it wrong. We are not just choosing who the next president of the United States is. We are choosing what kind of country America will be. But we have another choice before us. And it is a choice that I am asking you to make in this election. It is a choice that re-embraces all of the things that made this the greatest country in human history, but applies those principles to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And for me, I'm passionate about this. Look, guys, I understand that in this campaign, right now as it stands, I'm an underdog. You know what? I've been an underdog my whole life. My whole life. My parents did not have political connections, and they did not have money. They came here in 1956 with nothing. They were immigrants from the island of Cuba that spoke no English when they arrived. The first words my father learned were, "I'm looking for a job." They didn't know anyone. They didn't have much of an education, and they were discouraged. When my parents first got here, it was hard. They struggled. They admitted to me years later, obviously, that they even wondered if they had made a mistake. They wondered, maybe we shouldn't have gone, maybe we should even go back to Cuba. You can't imagine how glad I am that they didn't. I may never have been born because they had me in their 40s. Yet, my parents stuck it out. And here's what's so amazing. They were underdogs too. But they worked hard and they sacrificed. And less than 10 years after they came here with nothing, my father was just a bartender on Miami Beach. And they bought their first home in a safe and stable neighborhood. Years would go by and they would retire with dignity. But you know why my parents were successful? They were never rich and they were never famous, but you know why they were successful? Because they lived to see all 4 of their children live a life better than their own. This has a name. This has a name. It's called the American Dream. And the reason why I'm telling you my story, the reason why I'm sharing my story with you is because it's not just my story. It's our story. In America, we are all a generation or two removed from someone just like that, whether they came from another country or not. We are all just a generation or two removed from a father that sacrificed, from a mother that worked 2 jobs, from grandparents that did that for our parents, or maybe that's you doing it for your children now. This is what makes us different. Every country in the world has rich people, and we celebrate success. We don't demonize it. Most of the wealth in America is held by people that didn't inherit it. But what makes us special are the millions of people that are never going to be rich, and they're not trying to be rich. They're just trying to be happy. They just want to make enough money to buy a home in a safe and stable neighborhood, to retire with dignity, and to give their kids the chance to do all the things they never could. This is unique in the history of the world. Almost everyone that has ever lived has lived in a society that tells you what you are allowed to be. They tell you what you are allowed to be based on what your parents did before you. Imagine living in a country that says to you, it doesn't matter how hard you work, or how long you try, or how good you are. Because your parents were not a certain kind of people, you would not be allowed to fulfill your potential. Well, I just described to you the human condition in much of the world today, and in all of the world for almost all of history. There's been one exception, and that's been our country. And that exception, that American dream, was not an accident. It did not happen on its own. It happened because the Americans that came before us did what they needed to do. They made great sacrifices. They confronted and solved their problems. Now the moment has arrived for this generation to do its part. Now the time has come for us to do for our children what our parents did for us. Now the time has come for us to do for the next generation what the previous generations did for us. Now the time has come for this generation to rise to the challenge of our time. And if I'm president, we will. If I'm president of the United States of America, let me rephrase that. When I am president of the United States of America, you will have a president for all Americans, even the people that don't like me, even the people that protest against me, even the people that are shouting I don't know what here at this event. Guess what? I'm going to cut their taxes too. I will never divide you against each other on purpose. I will never ask you to hate one group of Americans so that you vote for me. Because after 8 years of being divided, we need a president that loves all the American people, even the ones that don't love you back. When I am president of the United States, we are going to re-embrace the conservative principles that made this the greatest nation in history. And when our work is done, I know things seem tough right now. I know all the news is bad. I know every time you pick up a newspaper or turn on the news or open up your mailbox, there's bad news in there. But I want you to know what we have a chance to do together if we do what needs to be done. I want you to know what history is going to say about us if we do what needs to be done right now. It will say that this generation of Americans lived in the early years of this new century in a troubling time, a difficult time. And after 8 years of Barack Obama, we almost got it wrong. We almost lost the greatest nation in the history of mankind. But then in 2016, we remembered who we were. We remembered who we were as a nation. We remembered who we were as a people. And we rose up to the challenge. Like each generation before us, we confronted our problems and we embraced our opportunities. And because we did what needed to be done, our children became the freest and the most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. And the American dream didn't just survive. The American dream reached more people and changed more lives than ever before. And when our work was done, the 21st century was not just as good as the 20th century, it was better. The 21st century became a new American century. This is what we have a chance to do, and we must do it now. And so I am here to ask you not just for your vote. I'm asking you to go out and get other people to vote for me. You have 4 days to change their minds, and if you do, you will make me president. And when I'm president, We will do what needs to be done, and we will leave for our children what Americans always leave for their children: the single greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. Thank you, Dallas. God bless you. Thank you.
Part of what that is trade. The rigged economy is that corporations develop policies which are good for them. You know, the truth is that if a corporation can shut down in America today and make an extra nickel by going to China, that's what they'll do. Many of these companies that have shut down here, it's not because they weren't profitable, it's just that they can make even more money by going to China. That's part of a rigged economy. And when you talk about a rigged economy, you also have to talk about a corrupt campaign finance system. Because they are tied together. Nothing is separated from each other. Everything ties into everything else. So what you got right now is a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. You now have billionaires, wealthiest people in this country, Wall Street, pouring huge amounts of money into the political process. In essence, buying elections. Now, when you have a handful of billionaire families, and when you have Wall Street pouring huge amounts of money into the political process, this is a scary, scary situation. I know we have veterans out in the audience, men and women who have put their lives on the line to fight for American democracy. When a billionaire can buy an election, that's not democracy, that is oligarchy. And when we ask ourselves why it is that voter turnout is so low in this country, why in the last midterm election 63% of the American people didn't vote, I think what people are saying, why should I vote? Hey, I got one vote. Billionaires are buying elections. Nobody in Washington is listening to me. Why do I want to be part of this charade? Why do I want to vote? So what we have got to do, very important issue, because it ties into everything else, we have got to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Now, in terms of this campaign, easy to talk the talk, it's a little bit harder to walk the walk. I made a decision early on that I would not be begging Wall Street or corporate America or the billionaire class for funds. We decided we do not want a super PAC. Thank you. Somebody said the other day, they stood up in the audience, they said, Bernie, we are your super PAC. And you are a super PAC, and I thank you for that. And I'd rather have you on my side 1,000,000 times over than all the money in the world from Wall Street. Now, my opponent has a different position. She has a super PAC, and in the last reporting period, her super PAC, her major super PAC, received $25 million, $15 million of which came from Wall Street. She also received, many millions of dollars in speaker fees. Now, she's a very good speaker, I admit that. But to get $225,000 for a speech to Goldman Sachs, you got to be really good. I don't know that she's that good. And when the New York Times just yesterday in an editorial said, you know what, might be a good idea to release the transcript of what you said to Wall Street, because maybe what you said behind closed doors is a little bit different what you're saying to the American people. I would hope that she will do that. And what I said, Secretary Clinton said, well, she will do it if other people do it. I am prepared to release all of the transcripts I got for secret meetings in Wall Street. Here they are. Now, there's another difference between the two of us, and it's a very important difference. Secretary Clinton was Secretary of State for 4 years, and in that position, you necessarily gain a lot of experience and knowledge about world affairs, and that's very, very true. But judgment is very important, more important, in terms of foreign affairs. Now, the most important foreign policy issue that the United States has had to deal with in the last 20 years has been the Middle East and has been the war in Iraq. Now, when I was in the House in 2002, I listened very, very closely to what President Bush and Vice President Cheney and Don Rumsfeld and all these guys were saying about how we had to go to war in Iraq. I didn't believe them. And if you go to my website and hear what I said in 2002, essentially what I said is, of course Saddam Hussein is a brutal dictator, murderer, bad guy, very bad guy. But what happens the day after you overthrow Saddam Hussein? What kind of political vacuum is developed? What kind of chaos will occur? The war in Iraq was the worst foreign policy blunder that this country has made in many, many decades. I led the opposition to that war. Secretary Clinton voted for that war. We have a difference on those issues. We are where we are today, and it is imperative that we go beyond establishment politics, because we are fighting a fight for the survival of the middle class and the working class of this country. When workers lose decent-paying jobs, especially if they have a union behind them, they end up working in Walmarts or McDonald's for half the wages, less than half the wages, with minimal benefits. That is not the future of this country that I want to see for our children and our grandchildren. We have got to rebuild our manufacturing sector, create decent paying jobs here. Now, one of the reasons that people are working such long hours. And I'm sure many of you know this, that in America, we got millions of people working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And the reason for that is that wages in this country are too damn low. Now, you can do the arithmetic as well as I can. I know here in Minnesota you've raised the minimum wage, and that's a good thing. But we have got to go beyond what Minnesota has done, and we have to understand that you can't make it on 10, 12 bucks an hour. You can do the arithmetic as well as I can. Just multiply $10 by 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. In my view, and I'm going to fight and work with unions to make this happen, we've got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next few years. Now, that's not a radical idea. All that idea is that if you work 40 or 50 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. And the other thing we have to do, and I know every man in this room will stand with the women, and that is to make certain that we have pay equity for women workers in this country. There is no rational economic reason why a woman should be making 79 cents on the dollar doing the same work as a man. That's sexism. We're going to end that. Now, when we talk about the economy, we also have to talk about jobs and unemployment, and we don't do that enough. Every month, the federal government comes out with a statistic called official unemployment. Official. Government also comes out with another statistic which essentially talks about real unemployment as opposed to official. Officially, nationally, we're 5% unemployment. Anybody here believe that real unemployment is 5%? No. It's not. Real unemployment, including those who have given up looking for work and those who are working part-time, is 9.9%, almost 10%. And here's something that is even worse, which media never talks about, and not talked about much in Congress, and that is youth unemployment. And I just talked to some people from the Native American tribes, and they talk about very, very high levels of unemployment. Here's what we got for youth unemployment. If kids between 17 and 20 who graduated high school, by the way, if they're white, real unemployment 33%. Latino unemployment 36%, African American unemployment 51%, Native American youth unemployment probably higher than that. Okay? Now, if anybody thinks in this room that there's not a correlation between high youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, you would be mistaken. Now think about this. In America, this is the richest country in the history of the world. We have 2.2 million people in jail, largely African American, Latino, and Native Americans. We spend $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. That's right. So you want a radical idea? Here's a radical idea. That we're going to invest in jobs and education for those kids on the reservations, those kids in the ghettos. We're going to invest in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. Now, I am told this morning that half of the kids, Native American kids around here, do not graduate high school in the normal 4 years. Well, we're going to change that. We're going to give kids the education that they need, and we're going to get kids the jobs that they need, because when kids have education and jobs, there is a strong likelihood that they're not going to turn to opiates and heroin, and they're not going to get themselves in trouble. So let's invest in our kids. When we talk about education, let me suggest to you something that some of you may think is radical, but it really is not radical. And that is that today, a college degree, in many respects, is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 or 60 years ago. 50 or 60 years ago, you can go to high school, get out of high school, you probably can get a pretty good job. Today, it is harder and harder to do that. You can do that, but it is harder and harder. I believe that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, it's not good enough just to talk about first grade through 12th grade. It is important to say that public education means that every public college and university in this country should be tuition free. Now, why is that important? It's important not only that it will enable young people to go out and get good jobs. And I came from a family, never had any money. My dad dropped out of high school. My mother graduated high school. But what it means to the people here, to the kids here in Hibbing and all over this country, is that if they know, if their parents know, if their teachers know that those kids do their schoolwork seriously, they will, in fact, be able to get a post-high school education regardless of the income of their families. That's a radical idea. Now, not every kid wants to go to college or is academically inclined. We need plumbers and carpenters and pipe fitters. We need people to help us install solar panels. All right? Those are good paying jobs, and our young people need that training as well. Let me touch on another issue that impacts every single one of us. And that is that as a member of the Senate Energy Committee and the Senate Environmental Committee, I have talked to scientists all over this world. And what they say almost unanimously is that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, it is already doing devastating problems, causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world. And what they tell us is if we do not get our act together, if we do not transform our energy system away from fossil fuel into energy efficiency and sustainable energy, the planet that we're going to be leaving our children and our grandchildren is a planet that will not be healthy or particularly habitable. We have a moral responsibility to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And by the way, when you make that transformation, we can create millions of decent paying jobs, building the solar panels we need, building them here in America, not in China. Building the wind turbines we need here in the United States. And when we talk about jobs, it's not just the millions of jobs we can create in sustainable energy. Everybody in this room knows that we have an infrastructure that is collapsing in many parts of this country. Bridges which are collapsing. That we have, in my own state of Vermont, many, many bridges are in disrepair, roads that need an enormous amount of work, water systems, wastewater plants, airports, rail. We used to have the best rail system in the world, no longer the case. Airports, levees, dams, you name it. I believe we should make a $1 trillion investment in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, and when we do that, we're going to create 13 million decent-paying jobs, making this country more productive. We as a nation have got to think big. We have to think small. Part of what is going on in this country is there is, from the ruling class of America, a desire for you all, for all of us, to think in austerity terms. And that is to say, well, we can't afford that. We can't afford this. We have to lower our expectations. In fact, a couple of years ago, rather amazingly, a guy from, who was the head of Goldman Sachs, is a billionaire. This guy is a billionaire who has a retirement package the likes of which nobody in this room could even dream of, okay? Billionaire. Comes to Washington, and he says, you know, in America now we're going to have to cut Social Security, and we're going to have to cut Medicare, and we're going to have to cut Medicaid. This from a multi-billionaire. Which leads me to another story that I want to tell you. I'm in the storytelling mood this morning, so sorry about it, but that story of him coming to Congress saying that what we need in this country are more tax breaks for the rich and cuts to Social Security, that got me a little bit upset. But I want to tell you another story. What our campaign is about is essentially telling the American people truth, and sometimes they're unpleasant truths. And here is the unpleasant truth. We have a corrupt campaign finance system dominated by big money. We have a rigged economy by which the middle class is shrinking, people on top are doing phenomenally well, and we have a broken criminal justice system. Let me tell you, so let me just tell you a story about what encompasses all three of those elements. A month ago, Goldman Sachs, which, as some of you know, is one of the large financial institutions in this country, reached a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion. $5 billion. Why did they reach a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion? The answer is, as were other banks, they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans, which was one of the reasons that our economy was destroyed 10 years ago. Okay, that's right, all right? So number one, it's a four-part story. Part one, they pay a $5 billion fine for basically acknowledging that they are a fraudulent, crooked, dishonest organization selling garbage to the American people and investors and defrauding people. Point number one. That is, to a large degree, what Wall Street is about, fraud. Point number two, political power in America. All of you have one vote. Well, it turns out Goldman Sachs and the banks on Wall Street, those guys get one vote too, but they also get the opportunity to put many, many millions of dollars into campaign contributions and into speakers' fees. Point number two. Point number three, and that's political power. You're running for office and I make put millions of dollars into your campaign. Now, I know there's never been a politician in history who has ever said, oh no, these contributions will not impact me at all. I have no idea why they're making these contributions. Will never impact me. No politician in history has ever claimed to be impacted by the zillions of dollars that came in. But that's what happens. Point number 3 is called the revolving door. You know what a revolving door is in Washington? You have people who work at high levels on Wall Street, like CEOs at Goldman Sachs, very powerful people. They leave Wall Street and they go to work for the United States government. In the last 25 years, Goldman Sachs alone has had 2 secretaries of the Treasury. All right, so you go from Goldman Sachs, you're Secretary of Treasury, you work for Wall Street in government, and then you go back to Wall Street. That's called political power. Okay, so you're representing Wall Street right in the highest levels of government. Point number 4, and maybe it is the point that upsets and angers the American people the most. Now, we have a criminal justice system today which is failing. It's failing in terms of so many of our people, young people, in jail. But it is also failing in how we dispense justice in America. Today, a kid in Minnesota, kid in Vermont, gets picked up for possession of marijuana. That kid will have a police record which will stay with him or her for the rest of their lives. And you know, that's not a joke. Because you go out, get a job, and your employer says, well, tell me about yourself. You ever been arrested? Well, yeah, 3 years ago I was arrested for possession of marijuana. Well, okay, we got somebody else who might be interested in the job. Serious business. So you got kids, and you got over a 30-year period, millions of people, by the way, who have criminal records as a result of possession of marijuana, which is a whole other story. But that's one reality. And then you got another reality. If you are an executive on Wall Street, and if your greed and recklessness and illegal behavior resulted in the destruction of a large part of our economy, millions of people losing their jobs, their homes, and their life savings, so many lives, older people, just really ravaged. If you are that executive, do you know if you get a police record or not? And the answer is you do not get a police record. You get a salary and compensation increase. And that is called a broken criminal justice system. What all of us grew up believing is if you're rich and if you're poor, if you break the law, under our system of government, you are treated equally. Equal justice under the law. That's a profound statement. Profound statement. All of us treated equally under the law. That is not the case today. If you are wealthy and powerful and you're on Wall Street and you destroy the American economy, you're not going to get a police record. If you're a poor kid picked up with marijuana, you will. Together, we are going to restore justice to a broken criminal justice system. Now, I am criticized every single day. What people say to me is, Bernie, you know, you think too big. Your ideas are too grandiose. You're asking for too much for the working families of America. How dare you? And let me respond in 2 ways. Number one, I find it interesting that over the last 30 years, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth in this country. You all know that? Problem is, it's gone in the wrong direction. Middle class, working class have lost wealth. Top 0.1% have seen a doubling of their wealth.
Take that money back.
Well, it's kind of what this camp, you know, and I hear the establishment, they're very worried about my proposals. How dare you think so big and it's so expensive? Where was the establishment worrying when the middle class was disappearing and trillions of dollars in wealth going from the middle class to the top 0.1%? I didn't see big editorials in the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post worrying about that massive shift of wealth. But now, because we are talking about creating an economy that works for all, oh my goodness, they are so worried. So let me tell you this. When I talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free, we're going to pay for that by a tax on Wall Street speculation. Our government bailed out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. When I talk about creating 13 million good-paying jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, I will tell you how we pay for that. We pay for that by doing away with these outrageous corporate tax loopholes that allow corporations, some of which make billions of dollars a year in profit, to stash their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and in other tax havens and end up not paying a nickel in federal income tax. So we're going to do away with that loophole and invest that money, $100 billion a year, into rebuilding our infrastructure. Now, I want to touch on another issue where I have been criticized for. And that is, again, I'm thinking too big. You know, I'm asking too much. And I am saying, why is it that if the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Holland, all of Scandinavia, Italy, Canada, in fact, every major country on earth can guarantee health care to all of their people, why can't we do that in the United States of America? Now, in my view, the Affordable Care Act has done a lot of good things, and I'm on the committee that helped write the Affordable Care Act. What we have done is done away with this obscenity, private insurance company obscenity of pre-existing conditions. All right? We have done away with discrimination against women who are paying higher premiums because they are women. We have added 17 million Americans into the ranks of the insured. All of that is a good thing. But today, 29 million Americans still have no health insurance, and many of you, if I am not mistaken, have high deductibles and high copayments. Am I right? Yeah. All right. Who wants to tell me? Anyone want to tell me what your deductibles are? How much? $5,000 a year. 5,000? $1,000 a month to have the union insure. So despite the union benefits, it's $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month? And that's what your family is paying, $1,000 a month? And a $3,500 deductible. So here is the problem. Technically, you are insured. You're in the ranks of the insured. But in reality, $1,000 a month is a good part of your income, is it not? All right, what this woman just said is she's spending $1,000, correct me if I'm wrong, $1,000 a month out of pocket, which is over half of your income. All right, my friends, well, that's another issue about dental care is another issue. Okay? All right. But her story, you see, now, in the statistics, you're insured. End of discussion. Everything is great. But in reality, it's not so great. In reality, I mean, it's hard to believe. again, this gets back, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. This woman is just telling us she's spending over half of her income on health care despite having union health care. Yes? All right. That is insane. You all get that? It's insane. And then what you got is you got millions of people who have these high deductibles. And if you have a high deductible and you don't have a lot of money, what happens? You don't go to the doctor. And I have talked to doctors all over this country. And you know what they tell me? People are walking into their offices much sicker than they should be. And the doctor says, why didn't you come to me 6 months ago when you first felt your symptom? And they say, well, I had a high deductible. Or I didn't have any health insurance at all. And then you know what happens? Some of those people die. In fact, thousands of people in this country every year die because they don't get to a doctor when they should, or they end up in the hospital much sicker than they should have been. Bottom line here is pretty simple to me. When you got 29 million people with no health insurance, when you have people like that woman who are very, very underinsured, when we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, we are in a situation which is so crazy where 1 out of 5 people who go to the doctor and get a prescription, they are unable to afford to pay for that prescription. Stop. Think for a moment. How crazy is that? If you are sick and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, this is your problem, ABC, here's your prescription, it'll help you, but I can't afford to fill the prescription. What happens if I can't afford to fill the prescription? You get sicker, maybe you die. And in fact, there are oncologists writing to us in Congress who are saying that our cancer patients cannot afford the medicine that they need. We got veterans who are dealing with hepatitis C. And you know, there's a new drug out, a very good drug. You know what it costs a pill? $1,000 a pill. Meanwhile, that same drug is sold around the world for much, much lower prices. In the 1990s, I took Vermonters over the Canadian border, women who had breast cancer. They were able to buy the medicine they needed in Canada for 1/10 of the price they were paying in Vermont. Does any of this make sense? This is crazy stuff. And that is why I believe it is time to take on the pharmaceutical industry, the private insurance company. And why I believe we have got to move toward a Medicare for all health care program. Health care, in my view, is a right, not a privilege. And we are now paying, everybody needs to know this, we pay almost 3 times per person what they do in the United Kingdom, 50% more than the French, far more than the Canadians. We can, if we move to a Medicare for All program, save the average middle-class person family thousands of dollars a year in health care costs. That's what we should be doing. Now, real change in America never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. That is the history of the trade union movement. Am I right? Nobody gave you collective bargaining. People fought and went to jail and were beaten and sometimes died for the right to organize a union and engage in collective bargaining. Same thing for the civil rights movement, same thing for the women's movement, same thing for the gay movement. No one gives you freedom, no one gives you dignity. You have to fight for dignity. Yeah. And that is where we are today as a nation. There are some people out there, people like Trump and others, who want to divide us up. They think they can get votes by making bigoted and racist remarks about Latinos, or telling us that we're supposed to hate Muslims. Now, among other things, yes. All right, but my view is that we will stand or fall as a nation, depending on whether we stand together. Black and white and Native American and Latino. Men and women and gay and straight, we're all in this together. And when we stand together, and when we have the courage to take on greedy, selfish, powerful special interests, whether it is Wall Street, whether it's the fossil fuel industry, whether it is the pharmaceutical industry, people who are only concerned about their own short-term profits and could care less about the American people. If we come together and make what I call a political revolution, bring millions of people into the political process, my friends, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. That's what this campaign is about. On Tuesday, here in Minnesota, we've got a very, very important election. I urge you to come out to the caucuses. I urge you to participate, to bring your friends and your neighbors. If we can win here in Minnesota, we've got a real path to victory for the Democratic nomination. Thank you all very much.
All right, well, it appears that Bernie rally ended. So let's go to this other event where former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, was speaking at.
I think it'd be almost impossible to track exactly where it's going.
I may be wrong, but I get the impression that poor people in Iran, South Tehran, they think that because of the nuclear deal and the propaganda they hear, that everything's going to get better for them. There may be new schools, better medical care, new hope for their economic well-being, and then you see billions of dollars subsidizing militias in the Arab countries and other things. Does it not make sense to try to show them where that money is actually going, and so that at least the Supreme Leader can't walk down the street without looking the poor people in the eye?
If in fact you could track it, it would be easy to show. But I think the proof will be in the pudding. Either things in Iran will improve, whether it's access to medical care, education, food, or it doesn't. And that will be, I think, a better indication of just where the money is flowing.
As you look at the grand picture of this regime over the last few years and all the things they're doing, coming to the nuclear table, doing what they're doing in Iraq and Syria and Yemen and elsewhere, and in Western Hemisphere, as you mentioned. Is this a sign of strength, or are they acting out of a sense of kind of peril to their ability to hang on to power?
Well, let's remember what brought them to the table. It wasn't just this movement on the part of this administration to get them to the table.
Who said Hillary? All right, very good. I like that. Woof, woof, woof. Who am I now? You enjoying this campaign? Was that not a rip-roaring debate last night? Wow. You know, a lot of people, I know this is a tough time for people because you've made a really smart decision, and I know people support this candidate and that candidate, and as a conservative that feels the last 7 years we have declined as a country, I am just hoping and praying that in November we have a conservative president that will transform America back into the greatness it once had. So, all right, but yeah, I can't hear New York, no. New York, are you talking to me? Hold on. This is a TV show, by the way. There'll be interruptions regularly. Yeah, I got Tiff. Hi, Tiff. Say hi to New York. Say hi to Nashville. All right. All right, so before Senator Cruz comes out here, my job is to warm up the crowd. Well, you all can sit down, take a seat, enjoy yourself. Oh, my gosh. How are you? Carol Swain. How are you, darling? She's a regular on the TV show. How are you, Ben?
Doing great, thank you.
And you're at Vanderbilt, right?
I am still at Vanderbilt.
One of the great colleges in the country.
And I voted for Ted Cruz.
Okay. Aren't these strange times, though? All right, so, you know, it's amazing we're in the 8th year of Obama's presidency, right? I know. Well, no, there's good news. He will be leaving soon. And
All right, everyone, we're going to show you that event a little bit later on. I know you were tuning in to former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, but I figured now's an opportune time to talk to Ron Hoon, specifically about politics, because obviously last night was the GOP debate, and it was like,
oh my goodness.
It was nuts.
Yeah, it is, and there's so much going on this morning as a result of all of what happened last night. It's fantastic.
So recap for the viewers who did not tune in.
Okay.
One thing I do want to acknowledge, though, shout outs to CNN for providing it for free on their app.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was very useful for me. As
That's
I went to
right.
dinner, we sat and watched it.
Okay.
We had dinner, me and a friend.
Yeah,
I
good
was
for
like,
them.
This is great.
Yeah. Well, they got to be realistic as to where we are in 2016. I mean, we're on the phone.
But not only
Everything's
that,
on the
but like
phone.
offering it for free for people who don't like have cable still.
Right.
Like you didn't have to type in like your cable subscription. It was cool.
Yeah,
So,
good
thank
for
you.
them. Yeah. So I had Chris Wallace on a little while ago. I talked to him. He's got Ted Cruz on his show on Sunday, and Ted Cruz has more pressure on him right now than anybody else.
He's got to win his home state.
But possibly in a good way, because the polls right now say he's going to win Texas.
Interesting.
If, unless there's a new one out today that says Trump is kind of squeezed ahead, but you and I looked at it yesterday, and out of the last 5 polls, Cruz is up anywhere from, he's in a tie is the worst, and he's up 15 points in the other one. He has to win Texas. If he loses Texas, I think it's over for him.
Right, but one thing to keep in mind also, yesterday's polls don't take into account last night's debate.
Correct. And that's the thing. I was looking at some of these numbers in some of these other states, and I don't know if these numbers will surprise you. Everybody knows how well Trump is doing. But I think Rubio finally just decided, you know what have I got to lose? I'm down 15 points in a lot of these states. Why don't I'm just going to take off and, just go with my gut. And I mean, he was that line where he's talking about, now he starts off by saying, you're the only person on this stage who's hired anybody illegally. And then Trump immediately shoots back, I'm the only person on this stage who's hired anybody, period. That was a good comeback from Trump. But then Rubio says, yeah, but all these Polish workers that you had come in, and Trump says something to the, and then so then they accused you of lying about it. And Trump says, yeah, 38 years ago. And then Rubio's response was, oh, so
was
there's
6.
a statute of limitation on lies.
He should have been like, oh, I was 6 years old, my bad.
Yeah. But that's a great line. There's a statute of limitation on lies. I mean, for Trump, who's been kind of building excitement because he's tough on his competitors, and people think, well, good, finally we'll have somebody who's also tough on everybody from China to Russia to ISIS, etc. But, I mean, the headline is, I saw somewhere in the many places I go, I saw a headline that says Rubio unloads. And I don't think we've had a debate yet where that was the headline coming out. I mean, for the most part, think about it. Wouldn't you say the overall kind of feel of the last couple of debates was Trump goes after Cruz? That really has been it. And last night it was Rubio goes after Trump and kind of put him on the defensive a few times.
Trump and Cruz had their back and forth. Really, the focus was on Rubio, Trump, and Cruz. You kind of oftentimes forgot Kasich and Carson were there.
And a thumbs up and a thumbs down to CNN in the following way. Good for them for just showing the 3 shot as much as they did. That's what matters, is these 3 guys.
Right, but I feel like it's unfair.
Well, it's practical. I mean, it is what people want to see, and all Ben Carson has to do to be included in a 4 shot is to start getting 20, 25% in these polls.
I don't even think Carson was going to be in a 4 shot. I was thinking more Kasich.
Okay, well,
I think Carson has no chance.
Yeah, well, even Kasich.
Kasich still, remember how he did in New Hampshire?
Yeah, and he's trying
Never forget, guys.
Yeah, and he's trying to hold on to some of these others. So thumbs up to them for, I think, being realistic and showing the 3 that everybody is no doubt going to be talking about, although Ben Carson had the best line of the night. I wish somebody would attack me so I could get in on this. But thumbs down to Wolf Blitzer for not seizing control a little more often.
Because it was just a yelling match.
It actually gets annoying when people are talking over each other.
Right.
It's the same in our business, in television. When a couple of the anchors are talking over each other with the weather person or whatever, and you can't understand who's saying what, it gets annoying. So it was a little too childish in that way.
Right, and even in the newscast, though, you guys aren't attacking each other. This is a whole another level of talking over each other, right?
A whole nother level, that is.
At least I hope you guys aren't attacking each other on the morning show.
Yeah, we get along pretty well. But look at some of these numbers. Ready? Here we go.
I'm ready.
All right. Virginia. There's a poll out of Virginia this morning that says, oh, by the way, Clinton smoking Bernie Sanders by 17 points. But Donald Trump at 38%, basically 40%, which blows Rubio's argument out of the water that no more than 30% want him. I mean, he did 47% in Nevada, and here he's almost 40% in Virginia. Cruz second at 15 and Rubio third at 13. I think Rubio finally figured out people do want a tough guy. In the world that we live in today, where ISIS, is out there, people want somebody who is going to be a strong leader, and that is definitely the persona that Donald Trump is bringing. Well, here's in Massachusetts, Trump 40. Rubio 19, Kasich 19, Cruz almost nowhere at 10%.
Interesting.
So, you and I have talked about this, SK. Donald Trump is bringing, in every state, he's bringing tens and tens of thousands of new voters. You multiply what happened in South Carolina, which was 100,000 more voters than they expected in the Republican primary. Multiply that across 50 states. Donald Trump could motivate not tens of millions, but many, many, many millions of new voters to come out. People who think the whole system is all screwed up and is fixed, and believe he's actually going to go in there and change it. So the question of court, there are 2 questions coming out of the debate. Did Cruz do well enough in Texas, in Houston, to hold on to Texas? That's almost like a must for him. And then number 2, did Rubio do enough to actually be able to win a state somewhere on Super Tuesday? I think the answer to the first one is yes. that Cruz probably did do enough to hold on to Texas, just by virtue of the fact that he and Rubio did put Trump on the defensive a little bit, and he already has a lead. But I think the answer to the second one is no. Right now, I don't see a state that Rubio, who's far behind, what do we give you? Virginia and Massachusetts. Here's even Florida. Here's his home state, and it's 45 for Trump and 25 for Rubio.
Yep, Trump is dominating. By the way, viewers out there who are watching, make sure to hashtag Fox News Now if you want to join in the conversation. We'd love to hear what you thought about last night's GOP debate.
Yeah,
what your take was on it. Hashtag Fox News Now. That's how I'm going to see it. We have no more chat room. So remember, just tweet us.
We asked for that yesterday,
hashtag
and yet nobody hashtagged us with that.
Fox News Now.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, but today's the day.
Okay, good. I'm not sure everybody heard us ask for the hashtags yesterday.
I can't hear that now because you talked over it. Sorry. I missed that.
I thought he said something about the news conference. It's about to get going.
Which news conference, though, or anything?
I thought he said Trump. Because he's the only one right now scheduled for a news conference. Maybe, is it Sat 5?
He's supposed to have a news conference?
Trump, yes. Oh, you heard it was a rally. No, it's going to be a news conference. He has a major announcement.
Yeah, the rally is at the event.
There it is.
Oh,
Sat 5.
Wow. That's interesting.
But that's the way it's looked, I have to say, for the last 45 minutes. Do you want to show everybody? Mm-hmm. I know you're going to take everybody there when it happens. So there's the podium. So he's got a rally a little bit later, but he is supposed to be speaking at any time with some sort of major announcement. But now remember, in Iowa, he held a news conference. Remember what the major announcement was? That John Wayne's family members were going to support him. So
he's a really good hype man. So
he is definitely a
major announcement could actually be a minor announcement.
We should, you should give it the old awaiting Trump news conference thing. See what happens over to wherever those numbers went. But in the meantime, what were your thoughts on the debate since you did get a chance to watch it?
It was just entertaining. There was just a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
That's all I really
Too much.
My take is lots of yelling, and John Kasich didn't get to speak enough. That was my take.
Mm-hmm. There is one state where Kasich's doing really well. Which one is that? Hold on.
Massachusetts, you said that he has 19%.
Yes, right. Yep. He's tied for second, tied with Rubio for second. And not surprising, it's not a particularly evangelical area, Massachusetts. Ted Cruz down to 10%. Okay, so anybody want to join the conversation, you just hashtag us at Fox News Now. Give us your take on the debate. Wow, there are a lot of numbers out today. How about this one? Illinois has it as Trump 38, Rubio 21, Cruz 16. One of the problems with the polls is they obviously lag where we are today. So they'll call people tonight to get their take, where now they're thinking about, okay, what did I see in the debate and what was some of the chatter I heard coming out of the debate? And so tonight, for the first time, it'll reflect that. So the polls on Monday and Tuesday will probably be the first time we get a full reflection of where people think they are going into. And in a lot of these states, anywhere from 20 to 40% of people are late deciders. It's pretty interesting.
I do want to acknowledge Boyd Cooper, who used the hashtag Fox News Now, saying watching people dogpile real Donald Trump and have him not so much as regard his detractors with a look, so based.
Oh, yeah. No, he's very good at barely acknowledging the other people on the stage, That's a good point. Good point, Boyd Cooper. So the other thing that's really interesting is some of the back and forth already this morning on social media, where Trump comes out and says, the people on that stage last night, you know, Ted Cruz is a liar and Marco Rubio is a choker, but he spelled it chalker. And so Rubio then comes out and says, you guys want to have a little fun? You were carrying his rally earlier this morning, pulls out his phone, and the crowd goes wild. He starts reading Donald Trump's tweets. And I think he just ad-libbed that Trump must have had a foreign worker or an immigrant worker take over his Twitter account for him, which was one of his big arguments last night. You know, so he's at least trying to bring it a little bit, which the days of trying to be all nicey nice with Donald Trump are obviously getting him nowhere. And frankly, Ted Cruz has been more on the attack, and that didn't work. And Jeb Bush was even more on the attack, and that really didn't work. So it's an experiment right now on all of these other candidates' parts to see, is there any way that we can slow down that train?
Dun, dun, dun. When will he arrive? Dun, dun, dun.
So looking at Trump's schedule, if they already notified you that there was going to be an 11 a.m. rally, then
That was the only thing sent to me this morning.
you've got to think that in the next few minutes he's going to step forward here.
Yeah,
Now, it could
unless
have
he's-
something to do with his taxes. I'm amazed that any Republican was able to control the news cycle, any Republican that wasn't Donald Trump,
Right.
to be able to control the news cycle, which yesterday it really was kind of dominated about Trump and his taxes after Mitt Romney decides, you know, to kind of take the gloves off a little bit. And I guess he's got some credibility on the issue because he's a rich guy too. So he's making it sound like, hey, well, you know what, there's no reason you can't release your taxes from a few years ago. Even if you are being audited, release some others.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
So a couple other people are chiming in via
Good.
Twitter.
Cool.
Doug Roberts saying, debate was a mess, exciting, but had little substance, just like the old Miller Lite slogan, tastes great, less filling. Boyd Cooper adding, also getting Cruz to basically insinuate that he doesn't care about people dying in the street. He dug his heels in and failed. Interesting. Guys, if you want to share your thoughts on last night's debate, just hashtag Fox News Now. And we will be reading them right here.
Good commentary.
While
from
we
you
wait for
guys.
Donald Trump.
The debate was a mess. That's a good headline right there. Matter of fact, that was the.
That is the headline.
Yeah, it really is. You know, which, I mean, we say that after every, we don't say a mess necessarily, but we say, oh, it was really a brawl. Oh, they really took each other on. Well, last night I felt was the first time that they really, really did. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because here's Doug saying that with the hashtag of Fox News Now, it was the same gist of my interview with Chris Wallace earlier this morning on Fox News Sunday, where he's, by the way, supposedly Hillary Clinton's campaign people, he called them out on the air last week and said, why have we not heard from Hillary Clinton? Every other campaign is in touch with us. We've had them or their top spokesman on. Where are Hillary Clinton's people? And so supposedly they are in touch with the people at Fox News Sunday to get her on, which would be good.
We got another comment here from Jim Cooley saying, we the people no longer want establishment. The Trump train is motoring on to the convention.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, we talked about it a minute ago, but
Right.
there are so many new people being brought into the process. I remember early on with Donald Trump, I want to say this was like last September, maybe October, where there was a lady who had attended one of his rallies, and she was an older gal. I think she was in her 80s or 90s, and she said, I have never been so excited about a candidate. I've never been so passionate. I've never been so wound up in it like I am this time around. And so people are really connecting. When you have that, it's, you know, remember when we went into it, we're like, well, we'll see what happens when they caucus, because then, you know, you're really going to get the party faithful, and you're going to get the people who are willing to go sit in an auditorium for 3 hours and listen to speeches.
That's a commitment.
Well, the best he's done yet was a caucus, you know, and so and a lot of the people that are showing up for him at caucuses and willing to sit through 2 or 3 hours are new people who probably never caucused before.
That's true. I want to check in with the chat room again. Mr. Griff saying Donald was attacked for wanting peace between Israel and Palestine. Ridiculous from the 2 Cuban warmongers. And we have 404 Sec saying Trump has my vote for Texas. Please shout out to Uncle B, fam Fox 10. Shout outs to Uncle B, I guess. And Kim Cadenhead saying Rubio just made himself look like a brat and Cruz is just plain mean. Trump has heart.
This is good. You guys are getting some good comments going there. Thank you, everybody.
I see that your meeting has started. Dun, dun, dun. It is. You're 3 minutes late already.
I am already late.
You're having so much fun up here.
But funny enough, I can't really take my eyes off the podium too, but at least we did get a chance to really share our thoughts about last night.
Right, and I'm going to keep reading viewer thoughts while we wait for Mr. Trump to arrive.
Okay. Nice job, SK.
Bye, Ronald.
Talk to you.
All right, everyone. Again, we are still waiting for Donald Trump to arrive to hold this press conference. In the meantime, I have Steve Kraft, who is a political expert here in this newsroom. Steve, I have not
I'm just
sat by
another
you.
talking head.
You are a genius,
Just a
political
head.
genius,
Nah.
and I'm so glad you're here. We're having viewers tweet in their thoughts about last night's GOP debate.
Let's cut right to the chase. Hot off the press. This is on Facebook, my Facebook page. I just did a video with my reactions. I want to share with everybody.
Okay, and then we're going to read
Then
your
we'll hear what-
guys' comments.
That's right. Let's do it.
Stand by, guys. Stand by. Oh, there we go.
Start from the beginning. Okay.
Oops. We gotta pull this up, guys. We're gonna cut away from the podium momentarily. Don't freak out. I know you guys like podium watch, but we're gonna listen in to Steve's thoughts.
Yesterday's three-way cage match between Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, with Ben Carson and John Kasich on the outside looking in, was, depending on your point of view, either cringeworthy or thrilling, or maybe it was both. But it leaves me with a couple questions. The first one is, no doubt, Marco Rubio came ready to attack. But is it too late? Super Tuesday is only a few days away. Why did he wait so long? The other thought I have is it possible that people already know so much about Donald Trump, his life is such an open book, there's so much of everything inside it, that really people aren't going to care about all the attacks. People either like Donald Trump or they don't like Donald Trump. And right now, a lot of people seem to like Donald Trump. Well, that's my take. What's yours? Reach out to me on Twitter at SCraftFox10 and on Facebook at SteveCraftFox10. It's real easy to do.
All right, guys, if you want to react to Steve's video, all you got to do is tweet us with the hashtag FoxNewsNow. I do want to read some comments and get your take.
Sure, let's do it.
Boyd in the chat room saying, that debate really was another show, though. They took our live streams and shut them down. Mohammed El-Tire saying, pundits will never understand that as long as Rubio is backed by major donors, his promises and policies are meaningless.
That's a very insightful.
Very insightful.
Very insightful, Mohammed.
Jim
Right.
Cooley saying, I would love to see real Donald Trump nominate Ted Cruz to the Supreme Court.
No way, Jose.
America's Savior saying Cruz and Rubio were like children just trying to gang up on Trump. Copycats. Let's see, what else do we have?
I think Kim has an interesting comment.
Yeah, we read this earlier, but you weren't here. We'll read it again. Kim saying Rubio just made himself look like a brat and Cruz is just plain mean. Trump has heart.
Well, I wonder if Rubio was so over the top that he kind of went a little far. I don't know. This is hardly a secret. Trump has a very complicated past, to put it mildly. His positions have been all over the map. He's got, all kinds of investments that have gone bust and others that have worked.
Mm-hmm.
He did start with a ton of money. He's built his own personal brand, and people either like him or they don't.
But the thing is, if you like him, it seems like if you like him, you really like him, and you're not changing your mind once you get on the Trump train. I don't think
Let me share with you a
anything
very
can happen to
interesting
change your
theory,
mind.
courtesy of Reverend Al Sharpton, who's not one
Reverend
of the,
Al.
not one of the probably the great heroes of a lot of our viewers, but he wrote something I thought was very interesting about Donald Trump.
What's that?
Why does Donald Trump connect with middle income and even lower income working people?
Despite the fact that he's
Despite
so
the fact
rich.
that he's a zillionaire.
Yeah.
And according to Sharpton, he's the white Don King, the ultimate promoter. But the reason that Trump connects is that Trump has never been accepted by the Manhattan elite. He's from Queens. He's from an outer borough.
Right.
He's thought of as new money.
Like street cred. He has some street cred
Yeah,
in a way.
but not a classy guy who's never made it to the upper echelon of the social circles of New York. He's considered to be too gauche and too loud and not classy. And so he has a chip on his shoulder as a result of that. And working stiffs can relate to another guy with a chip on his shoulder no matter how much money he has. Therefore, they connect with Trump, who has working class appeal, maybe attracting ultimately Reagan Democrats, people who on the issues probably ought to side with the Democrats, but for personal reasons they seem to like the Republican standard bearer of that year, Reagan in the 80s, and maybe Trump this time around.
Right.
So that helps explain part of his appeal, even though on the merits, you'd think there'd be no kinship between a guy like Trump and all the working people. He's against union rights, he's against raising the minimum wage, he's against a lot of things that a lot of working people you would think would want, but yet they still like the guy.
I want to get the chat room's take on that, because I know a lot of Trump fans are already in there, and I'm sure they have something to say. Remember, all you have to do is tweet us right here.
By the way, I like this new setup you have.
Oh yeah, we have a new set. Welcome.
This is if you ever followed the classic rock bands, this is like Keith Moon's drum kit. We're just surrounded. We're like surrounded by this huge amount of gear that's looming
But
over
it means
us.
that we have more space at the desk, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
I want to go check in. Rick saying Rubio behaved like a man-child, and Cruz reminds me of a wax figure. Trump all the way. Boyd Cooper saying Rubio was for amnesty once upon a time, but after Big Papa Trump mentioned the wall, his tune has changed.
You know, the whole Republican Party wanted to cut a deal on immigration. Rubio went along with it. He was part of the Gang of Eight. It wasn't Rubio by himself. And if memory serves, wasn't Jeff Flake part of that effort? Our own senator here in Arizona?
I think it's more that he's the one that happens to be running for president.
Right.
So that's what everyone's
But the
pointing
Republican
out.
Party, after they lost in 2012, wanted to cut a deal on immigration in order to attract Latino voters without whom you cannot win the White House. So
Right.
why is everybody bagging on Rubio now? It's suddenly uncool to be for what the party wanted him to be for, and he dutifully went along with a couple of years ago. Now he's paying the price for it.
Squibblers of Rome, and I hated how the moderators and the Cuban candidates always have to ask, why are you literally Hitler questions? Okay. Let's see, who is chiming in now? I think we've read, there we go. 404 SEC chiming in saying the working class wants to work for higher wages. We do not want handouts. Thanks for the Uncle B shout out. You're welcome. I hope your Uncle B is enjoying the show.
Well, maybe that's part of the key to the appeal of Trump. I don't know, but I don't think many people would consider being in a union any sort of handout. Where's the handout? Handout is if the government gives you money for something,
I don't know. This is 404
as opposed to
State.
collective bargaining for your mutual benefit. But whatever, if people don't want that, they don't want that.
Right, guys, again, tweet me at Samia Fox 10 or submit a question or a comment through the hashtag Fox News Now. We'll be reading it here. We're just on podium watch pretty much. I know that the rally was scheduled for 11 a.m. But now Trump has made this big announcement that he's holding a press conference prior to the rally. He says he has a big announcement. We just don't know what it is. What do you think it is?
He hates Rubio's guts. How about that? There's a big announcement. I don't know. Maybe he's got some kind of endorsement, or
Right.
I don't really see how big the big announcement could be, frankly.
Right. There's
He's
that.
gonna. How about this for an announcement? He's going to make America great again.
I think he's mentioned that a whole bunch of times. Speaking of, one of the things I noted when they were kind of giving their opening statements, or at least early on in the debate, it seemed like Donald Trump was tired. And I don't know if maybe I misread that, but he was saying a lot of the things he says at his rallies. And I
Yeah.
thought he might shake it up a bit, but it was like, we don't win anymore. We're
Has
gonna
it
make
occurred to
America
you
great again.
Has it occurred to you that he really doesn't have all that much to say?
No, but he does. He talks a lot.
Yeah, but he really doesn't have a lot to say in terms of issues, does he? If I were to ask him, in any detail how he's going to resolve the problems in the Middle East, would I get anything at all? I don't think so. And people don't seem to really care one way or the other about that. But he would be able to say more things if he had more information maybe to share with people about specifics.
He'll hire other people with
Maybe
the
that's it.
specifics.
Maybe he'll
He's
be
just
the
gonna-
chief delegator.
That's what he's good at. He'll manage everyone. He'll hire the right people, and things will go well, hopefully.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. I
Jim
guess.
Cooley saying Donald Trump connects with the people because he knows what we want, and politicians can't give it to us.
What's going to be the
Hashtag special-
blowback
no.
if he wins and becomes president and things don't really change? In a couple
Mr.
years?
Griffith saying announcement is VP Chris Christie.
No.
Interesting.
That's not gonna be
Nick
good.
Sutton saying Trump needs to make a big announcement to dominate the news cycle. He talks about this in
Yes.
The Art of the Deal.
Nick
And
makes a
Nick-
great point.
Well
He's so
done.
good, and this is what Donald Trump is a genius at. He's a genius at changing the conversation and grabbing the spotlight and promoting his brand.
Right.
I think he's the best I've ever seen in public
He's
life.
so good.
He's
404 pointing out why different people connect with, and he's saying, I was referencing the relatability to someone who is a billionaire. It is the American dream he has achieved that we relate to.
Well, he hasn't achieved it. He started with a couple $100 million. So where's the dream that he's achieved? He has lived it. His father and grandfather before him really made the big bucks. But like I said, his great achievement is promoting his personal brand.
Right. Very good at
And
that.
that is very important skill.
End of chiming in. I'm a lifelong liberal Democrat, but if it's a Clinton versus Trump, I'm voting Trump. It's about trust factor. End of. Interesting take. Ivan Marakov sending a retweet from the Daily Beast, a tweet that says robot Marco Rubio turns Terminator on Donald Trump.
Why didn't he do this 2 months ago?
Oh, Rubio? I don't know.
Why was
he was
so-
trying to be a nice guy. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
He kept waiting
maybe
he kept waiting for Trump to fall and implode, and then he would just be the guy.
I just thought he was trying to be Trump's VP later on. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Another comment, Trump is going to announce an endorsement from Huntsman. Shout out to Otto Edmit.
Huntsman, that would be an interesting endorsement, because he's, was the most moderate of all the 2012 candidates on the Republican side.
Javier Corona
I don't believe that, by the way. I don't think that's good.
Javier Corona saying, I think yesterday's debate was chaos, and Texas don't like Trump, period. We can't negotiate. We need real solutions.
Why is he
Rubio has
very
my vote.
competitive in the polls in Texas? He's very competitive in the polls in Texas.
I mean, he's a competitor in all the polls.
Wow.
Squibblers of Rome.
That's crazy.
Dr. Benadryl looked more tired than Trump. Trump is just tired of hearing the same lies about him. Okay. Boyd Cooper saying his message is simple and streamlined because the left base.
Wow, there's a lot of press. Something's going on that's very positive. That's very good. Well, I just want to thank you all. We had a great debate last night. Every single online poll had us winning and winning big. So I'm very honored about that. It was a very interesting experience. And actually, to me, it was somewhat fun. It got a little bit testy, but I think that's probably good for television. I'm sure the ratings were very good. I'm sure CNN was very happy. But really, it had a lot of very constructive moments. So we were very, very happy with the way it came out, and we were very happy with the reviews. It's my honor this morning. We have a tremendous crowd of people outside. But before we do that, it's my honor this morning to introduce somebody who is a real standout. He's been my friend for many years. He's been a spectacular governor. He's been just a wonderful person and a wonderful, loyal person. Done a really good job. Totally destroyed Marco Rubio the other day. I have never quite seen it. I was standing next to Marco Rubio, and he melted. I said, "Are you all right, Marco?" And, I really give Chris credit for that. He's a real talent, and I would like to introduce him because he's going to say something that I think you'll find very, very interesting. Thank you. Okay, Chris. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am proud to be here to endorse Donald Trump for President of the United States. I'm doing this for a number of reasons. First is that Donald and I, along with Melania and Mary Pat, have been friends for over a decade. He has been a good and loyal friend to our family, as we have been to he and his family. And over the years, we've had a lot of wonderful times together. Done a lot of good together for not only the people of the state of New Jersey, but for many charities that we've worked with and on together. And I absolutely appreciate him as a person and as a friend. Secondly, I've been on that stage. I've gotten to know all the people on that stage. And there is no one who is better prepared to provide America with the strong leadership that it needs, both at home and around the world, than Donald Trump. He is, looking at the 5 people on that stage last night, the clear standout and the person who will do exactly what needs to be done to make America a leader around the world again. He'll provide strong, unequivocal leadership. He will do what needs to be done to protect the American people, first and foremost, both in the homeland and in creating jobs for this country. And he will make sure that people around the world know that America keeps its word again. Donald Trump is someone who, when he makes a promise, he keeps it. I've experienced that over my long friendship with him. And what the American people and our allies around the world are going to understand is that Donald Trump is someone who keeps his word, and that means America will keep its word again. Third, there is no doubt in my mind, and I've been saying this right from the time I entered the campaign, that the single most important thing for the Republican Party is to nominate the person who gives us the best chance to beat Hillary Clinton. I can guarantee you that the one person that Hillary and Bill Clinton do not want to see on that stage come next September is Donald Trump. They know how to run the standard political playbook against junior senators and run them around the block. They do not know the playbook with Donald Trump because he is rewriting the playbook. He is rewriting the playbook of American politics because he's providing strong leadership that's not dependent upon the status quo. And so the best person to beat Hillary Clinton in November on that stage last night is undoubtedly Donald Trump. And so I am thrilled to be here this morning to lend my support. I will lend my support between now and November in every way that I can for Donald to help to make this campaign an even better campaign than it's already been, and then to help him do whatever he needs to do to help to make the country everything that we want it to be for our children and grandchildren. He's a good friend. He is a strong and resolute leader. And he is someone who is going to lead the Republican Party to victory in November over Hillary Clinton, which is the single most important thing we can do. So I thank him for his friendship. I thank him for all the kindnesses that we've shared with each other over the years. But more importantly than that, I thank him for leaving the private sector, for seeing that there was a need for strong leadership in this country, and for being willing to step out of the private sector and come and offer himself for public service and for leadership in this country at a time when our party and our nation so desperately needs it. So I'm happy to be on the Trump team, and I look forward to working with him. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Great honor. Yes, Mark?
Senator Rubio made a number of statements about you today. I want to ask Governor Christie what he thinks of.
Okay.
I want to ask Governor Christie what you think of Senator Rubio calling Donald Trump a con artist. And Mr. Trump, he seems to be trying to get...
Is that what he called me?
He called you a lot of things. One of them was a con artist. But I want to ask you...
He's a pretty desperate guy. He's down about 22 points in Florida.
He seems to be trying to rally you and get inside your head. I wonder what you think the chances of that are.
That's not happening. Go ahead, Chris.
Listen, the fact is that desperate people do desperate things. And I've seen it throughout politics, and so have you. And so the idea that Marco Rubio can get inside Donald Trump's head is an interesting proposition, but one that's really for the D.C. parlor game. What Donald Trump is about the people of this country. You know, I heard some of Senator Rubio's comments this morning. None of them were about the people of this country. When are we going to start talking about them? The fact that middle-class folks in this country are suffering. The fact that people who want jobs can't get them because they've been taken away. The fact that we can't any longer as a country stand up and defend ourselves around the world because we have a leader who wrings his hands. I didn't hear any of that this morning from Senator Rubio. So desperate people in campaigns do desperate things, flailing punches in the last days of a losing campaign. Fact of the matter is, no one's going to get inside this guy's head. He has lived a lot of life. He's had lots of fights and battles. I've watched him do it. And there is no better fighter than Donald Trump, and he's going to fight for the American people. And you didn't hear Senator Rubio talk about any of that this morning.
Mr. Trump.
John?
First, two things. First of all, this is a big endorsement.
I agree. To me, it's a very big endorsement.
I want to ask you what it means to your campaign. You said endorsements don't matter, Mark.
Generally speaking, I'm not big on endorsements. I could have had many endorsements. I have quite a few good ones, but I could have had many, many. But, you know, I didn't want to take the time and the 2 hours and the dinners and everything else. It just wasn't worth it. This was an endorsement that really meant a lot. Chris is an outstanding man with an outstanding family. He's done a great job. And I think that this is the one endorsement that I felt very strongly about I wanted to get.
And I want to ask you about Marco Rubio talking about you at the debate. He actually suggested that you were sweating backstage, that you seemed...
Well, I'll tell you about backstage, I mean, if you'd like. I walked back there, and he's with a pile of makeup, putting it on his face. I said, Marco, easy with the makeup. You don't need that much. You know the story with Marco. I watched him against this man, where Marco, he was right over here. And I actually looked at him. I said, are you okay? He looked like he just came out of a swimming pool. He was a mess. So we'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. But, no, I heard he had some very nasty personal comments. But I saw him backstage, and he was putting it on with a trowel. Yes, Katie?
Is this foreshadowing anything? A vice presidential position in the cabinet?
It's just too early. We never even had that discussion. Chris called. We have this great relationship, and I just said, wow, that is really great. That is really great. To me, this is something that means outstanding person, amazing person.
Mr. Trump, you said that Hillary Clinton shouldn't be allowed to run for president because of her email scandal, but right now you're facing a fraud case from Trump University. You haven't really...
Excuse me, that's a civil case. I've won much of it. Excuse me, Sarah. I've won much of it. It's a peanut case. It's a very small case. I will end up winning. I could have settled it many times. I decided not to settle it. I could settle it now. I don't want to settle it. Excuse me. I go through court. I go through court often. I win the cases. I have a very good record. And I don't like, this is just people wanting to get their money back. Most of these people signed report cards. It's called a report card, where they said how great it was. Then they sue you years later to see if they get their money back. So we'll win the case. It'll take a little while, but we'll win the case. Much of the case has already been won. Go ahead.
This is for Governor Christie. Governor Christie, when you had a decision to make between a lot of the other candidates, what did it come down to, and when was the moment when you decided to endorse Mr. Trump?
First of all, let me respond to that because I'm a former federal prosecutor. To try to compare a civil lawsuit to the mishandling of classified information, much of which I can tell you, we used to have to go to specialized rooms that were sealed from any type of intrusion to look at, and those were sitting on a private email server in Mrs. Clinton's basement in Chappaqua, New York. To try to compare that to a civil lawsuit where someone's suing for money is a complete misunderstanding. A complete misunderstanding. Excuse me. Listen. It's a complete. You're setting up a question. You're trying to. No. Let me finish. You're trying to equate a civil lawsuit against him with the mishandling of classified information that could put American national security at risk. It's ridiculous. Now, on your question, here's my process. Here's my process on how I went through this. Fact is, after the campaign was over, Mary Pat and I went home and we took a deep breath. I got back to preparing my budget for the state of New Jersey, which I needed to do a week after the New Hampshire primary and present that to the people of New Jersey. And then we sat down as a family, me and Mary Pat and our children. And we talked about, do we want to play any other role in this campaign or do we want to just not? I concluded, along with Mary Pat and the children supported, that we wanted to be with the person who we thought could provide the strongest leadership for America and the person who could best make sure that Hillary Clinton never gets within 10 miles of the White House. Once we made that decision, there was clear the only choice was Donald Trump. The best choice was Donald Trump. And the last thing is, our family is one that prides loyalty. And the fact is that we have been good friends with Donald and his family for many years, and there was no choice in my mind. And when did I make the final decision? Yesterday morning, I met with Donald. We sat and talked, and he said, how about coming out on the road to Texas with me? And I said, happy to do it whenever you're ready, sir. So we did it, and that's how the process went.
Governor Christie, during the campaign, you said two things about yourself. You're a former federal prosecutor uniquely qualified to deal with national security, specifically terrorism. You also took great pride in putting together entitlement reform proposals more specific than anyone else. On both of those counts, Mr. Trump has been found by his rivals, still in the race, not sufficiently specific and unprepared. Marco Rubio said he's wholly unprepared today to be the president of the United States. How do you evaluate what Mr. Trump is on entitlements and on dealing with terrorism as compared to the way you saw yourself?
I find it fascinating that someone who barely shows up for work in the 6 years he's a United States Senator is going to talk about somebody else being unprepared. And the fact of the matter is, Senator Rubio has shown himself over the course of time to be wholly unprepared to be President of the United States. I said that at the time I was in the race, and nothing has changed my mind now. Fact is, this is the only guy on that stage, other than Governor Kasich, who has made executive decisions, who's had to make executive decisions throughout his life, who understands how to put together budgets, how to make sure that money is spent efficiently and effectively in order to create profit, and to make sure that the country, as moving forward as president, would get back on that kind of track. This guy knows how to do that better than anybody on that stage. And so this campaign has a long way to go, and there's going to be lots of conversations still to have. But the confidence I have is that he is strong enough to take on the D.C. establishment, which is what's represented by, Senator Rubio. It's the D.C. establishment against the guy who's going to come in there and fight the D.C. establishment to turn around what's been happening in this country, the failure of both parties to be able to do anything that's worthwhile. So Donald and I continue to have great conversations about the campaign going forward. I intend to be a resource in any way that I possibly can be for him. And I have absolute confidence in his ability to be able to get in there and fix the problems that plague America.
Mr. Trump, can you give us a timeline on releasing your personal tax?
Well, I think I told you about 12 times yesterday. My taxes for many years have been under audit. And for some reason, I have a lot of rich friends. They've never been audited. I'm audited every year, I think, for like 12 years. Many of those audits have been finished, but we have some left. And until such time as the audit is finished by the IRS, which is a routine audit, I think, but until such time as it's finished, I won't be going and releasing because obviously that wouldn't be a very good thing to do. Yes, go ahead.
How do you feel about the recent endorsement from David Duke?
I didn't even know he endorsed me. David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow. Okay? Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
The former president of Mexico says they will not pay for the wall. What is your response to that?
My response is the wall just got 10 feet higher. I gave it to you yesterday. I'll tell you what, and he used foul language. And if I used that language, Chris can tell you. Can you imagine if I used that language? If I used that language, it would be a major scandal. And as many people as we have today, you'd have 5 times more. It was disgraceful the way he went about saying it. And it's going to be very easy. Mexico will pay for the wall. Number one, the wall will be built, which the other people will never get done. And Mexico will pay for the wall. And the reason is very simple. We have right now $58 billion in trade deficits. The wall is a fraction of that. So we will get the wall done, and Mexico will pay for it. Yes, go ahead. Okay, don't get nervous. Don't get nervous. Don't worry about it. Not a big deal.
What percentage of your success would you attribute to the rising anti-establishment sentiment among the voters?
I think a lot. Good question. I like it. Thank you. I think a lot. People are angry. People are upset. They're upset by by what's going on with the economy. They're upset by trade. They're upset by virtually everything. Nothing good happens with us. We don't win anymore. Nothing good happens. So there is a very angry group of people out there, and they're not angry people, but they're angry at what's happening to our country. Yes, go ahead. Stay with me. We're going to get you jobs, because the biggest problem I have, I go and meet college students. They get out, they work hard, they put debt up to their neck, and then they can't get a job when they graduate, because the jobs we have are all bad jobs. We're not creating good jobs. The good jobs are going away. They're going off the country. They're going out of our country. Pfizer is leaving and moving to Ireland. It's disgraceful. We're going to get them jobs. Yes, go ahead.
Question for Governor Christie, if I might. Governor Christie, I listened to you for months say we don't need a container-in-chief. You need someone who's not only going to burn Washington down, but knows how to rebuild it. You had a lot of condemning things to say about Mr. Trump. What changed the calculation?
How did you know I was talking about Mr. Trump? Well, by the way, I mean, listen, I think you watch the act Senator Rubio has been putting on over the last few weeks. He's obviously gone now, and part of his talking points are to try to be entertaining and smile a lot. Listen, it's one act after another. We don't need any more of these Washington, D.C. acts. The acts I wanted to get rid of are Washington, D.C. acts. That's why, as a governor from a state capital, I said we don't need somebody from Washington, D.C. What I most consistently said during that campaign was the problem is Washington, D.C., and we don't need Washington politicians to come in and fix it. And so when you look at who's remaining on that stage, there is no question that this is the person who will go to Washington, D.C. and be able to absolutely turn the place around. We don't need any more Washington politicians, especially some who've only been there for one term and never really shown up for work to tell us how to run the United States government. And so I absolutely believe that Donald Trump is the best person on that stage to be president of the United States. And one last thing, by the way, there was a period of time I was running against him. And he knew when I was running against him, I wanted to beat him. And he wanted to beat me, and we had open conversations about that. But that part of this is over. And then you have to say to yourself, as a good, loyal American, who is the best person to stop Hillary Clinton from ever getting inside the White House again? This is the best person to do that. Turn away from the amateur acts from Washington, D.C., and turn to a professional, strong leader. That's who this man is.
Governor Christie, you did say ask him how. You asked him how is he going to do this?
Yes.
Firmly embedded in the establishment of the party and its fundraising mechanisms. As part of your presence here today, tell the Republican establishment still not sold on Mr. Trump. This campaign is effectively over. You better get on the bus.
No, what my intent for being here today is to say to anyone who's willing to listen, not just members of the RGA or donors, but to the American people, that you need a strong, tough leader to restore America's greatness. And this is the best person to do that. And so whatever message anybody else wants to take from that, they can take whatever message they like. But most of the time, you know that people do best with me. If they don't try to figure out what the message is, they just listen. They listen to what I say, because I don't send smoke signals. What I'm doing today is I'm endorsing the person I believe is the best person to defeat Hillary Clinton and restore American jobs, restore American prestige around the world, and restore the faith and confidence of the American people again in the fact that we are an exceptional and great nation.
Also endorsed Mitt Romney and gave a speech for it. Compare and contrast.
Mitt Romney to Donald Trump, they're very different fellas.
Well, I think we have a great shot. I think that People are liking me a lot. I know a lot about Texas. I have many friends in Texas, many, many friends. I'm here a lot. I think we have a really good chance. If you look at South Carolina, that was supposed to be Cruz's stronghold. That was a stronghold. He was going to win that easily. And I won by, is it 22 points? You know, I won in a landslide. I won evangelicals. I won military. I won the vets. I won everything. I won men. I won women. I won Hispanics. I won every single category. And same thing in Nevada. We came in. We won every category, including, by the way, Hispanics. So, you know, it was supposed to be a stronghold. He was supposed to do great there. He lost by a lot. I think that I should have a really good chance of Texas. I see the Bloomberg poll came out, and it's, you know, massive leads in every state. We're doing very well in Texas. The Emerson poll came out. We're, I guess, tied or effectively tied. So I think we're going to do very well here. I'm going to be here. I'm here now. And I would love to get Texas because of my relationship to Texas. So many friends. Okay? Mark? Well, he's desperate. Look. I watched a part of his little act, and he's a desperate guy. I've been watching him over the last number of weeks. He is not presidential material, that I can tell you. Doesn't have the demeanor. He is a nervous Nelly. I watch him, you know, backstage. He's a mess. The guy's a total mess. And, you know, I joked recently about, can you imagine Putin sitting there waiting for a meeting, and Rubio walks in, and he's totally drenched. I don't know what it is, but I've never seen a human being sweat like this man sweats. So I don't think he's I don't think he's of presidential caliber. I don't think he has the demeanor. I don't think he's going to do very well. And he's a mess because in Florida, which he abandoned, by the way, I love Florida. I've invested hundreds of millions of dollars. I own Doral. I own many clubs, including Mar-a-Lago, including Trump International, which is one of the best clubs in the country. But I own many. And a lot of real estate along the shore of Miami that worked out well with the Deserts and a lot of other people. So I'm a major investor in Miami, one of the biggest. And frankly, the people in Florida like me. But for me to go into Florida and have like a 20-point lead over the sitting senator, but remember, the sitting senator abandoned Florida. He left Florida. He was supposed to be there. He really defrauded, if you think of it. He really defrauded Florida, the people of Florida, because they elected him as a young senator. He goes there, and before he sits down, he starts running for president. So he's not the right guy, in my opinion, and I think he's got very bad temperament. I think he's got the absolute wrong temperament to be president. Katie, go ahead.
A few days ago, people were speculating that he wasn't going after you, you weren't going after him, that maybe you all had a secret deal.
No, they did speculate that he was going to be my vice presidential pick. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. Now it's obvious that he's not going to be. I never even had it in mind. I don't think he has the right temperament. I watched Chris do a number on him. I've almost never seen a meltdown like that in my life. And, you know, it's interesting about people who choke. I'm, believe it or not, a good athlete. I've watched people choke over the years. And once a choker, always a choker. It never, ever changes. The guy that misses the kick, misses the kick. When he misses the first one, you got to get rid of him because it doesn't work. Once a choker, always a choker. And that was one of the epic meltdowns. He didn't know where he was. I thought he was going to die. Good going, Chris. Man. Well, I don't want to discuss that, but he certainly got the talent. We didn't talk about it. We actually did not even talk about it, but he certainly has a lot of talent. Yes, Katie?
The IRS has said that there's nothing precluding you in its rules from releasing your taxes.
I don't want to do it until I have it done. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. We talk about establishment and all. I think it's very unfair that for many, many years I've been audited. I have many, many friends that are very rich people, and they have never been audited. I was with somebody the other day, very rich guy. I said, "How often are you audited?" He said, "Audited." He didn't know what I was talking about. I have many, many rich friends, almost all of them, and they're never audited. Why am I audited every single year? So I'm just going to put you people to rest. Until my audit is finished, very simple, you're not going to see anything. When it's finished, you're going to see it. But I'm not going to complicate things by doing it. But put yourself in my position. Why is it that every single year, and I'm talking about beyond Barack Obama, but every year during his term also, every single year I'm audited? It's not fair, I will tell you. I can't tell you why. I mean, I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why. All I can say is that many, many people I know that are very, very wealthy are not audited. Okay. John?
Marco Rubio has gone right at you at what is your biggest strength, your business success.
Yeah.
He's portrayed you as having a series of business disasters.
Yeah, which is...
He said you've made it by beating up on the little guy.
Yeah, which is totally wrong. Totally wrong. He also said I got $200 million from my father. I wish. I got a very, very small loan from my father many years ago. I built that into a massive empire, and I paid my father back that loan. And by the way, and I was telling Chris, actually Chris was telling me because he understands it, my father left me some money, nothing like the numbers you heard, but by that time, it was many, many years later when my father passed away. My father, more than anything else, I learned a lot from my father. But for this guy, this lightweight, I call him a lightweight because he is a lightweight, to get up and say $200 million. In fact, the first call I got last night was from my sister. And then I got a call from my brother. And they said, wow, how does he say that? That's not true. They understand. You know, we have 5 in the family. And they said, so in other words, anything also would be split up. But she called, she said, boy, was that untrue. And it's really a shame. And I'll tell you where they got it. They got it, the New York Times wrote, you know, I call it the failing New York Times because it is a totally failing paper with some really inaccurate reporting and purposely inaccurate. They go out of their way, and if you try and make a correction prior to the story, they don't want to do it. They made a statement about it. I don't know where they got it, but I would just tell you the number is wrong by a factor of hundreds of, I mean, by a fortune. I got a small loan, started a business, and it's now worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. And if I ever wanted to sell the assets I have, Trump Tower, the Bank of America building in San Francisco, big chunk, 1290 Avenue of the Americas, some of the best land in the country, Doral Country Club, Turnberry in Scotland, home of the Open Championship, referred to sometimes as the British Open. My property would sell for numbers like nobody would even believe. I have, I think, among the best properties anywhere in the world. No, I just think it's really unfair when a guy says, my father gave me $200 million. If you knew Brooklyn, okay, in the early 1980s, and you understand this, Chris, if you knew Brooklyn in the early 1980s and the 1970s, there wasn't $200 million, that I can tell you. And I do have brothers and sisters. But the first call I got was from my sister, and then I got a call from my brother, late at night. And all he wanted to do is say, why are they allowed to say that? Because he's a liar. This guy's a liar. Now, I used to call Ted Cruz a liar, but now I'll also call Marco Rubio. And he actually mentioned some companies, and some of those companies are very successful companies. He said they closed. I sold some. Like, for instance, I sold Miss Universe for a lot of money, got a lot of money for it. I sold others. And the water company he mentions, I think, the wine company. I have the biggest vineyard on the East Coast. That's having to do, I make vodka all for my clubs, because I have many clubs. And we make vodka for the clubs. He said it was closed. It's not closed. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Does this make you rethink your pledge? Because you pledged to support whoever the nominee is. If he were to become the nominee...
Well, no, I think about it. I would certainly think about it. But look, if for some reason it didn't work out for me, Chris would understand this. I'm going back into what I do. I don't need to do this. This is something I'm doing because we are going to make America great again. And politicians are not going to do that. These politicians, and I know the people on the stage, they're not going to do it. Marco Rubio is a lightweight. He doesn't have the talent. He doesn't have the temperament. He can never make us great. No, I can't. What kind of a question is that?
Can I ask you a question?
No, I can't.
As you said, are a former federal prosecutor. Is there a position in the cabinet that you would be interested in, Attorney General, something like that? Would you like to be his running mate?
I am the governor of the state of New Jersey until January 19th of 2018, and I have every expectation that I will fulfill the end of my term and then go into private life and make money like Trump. That's what I intend to do. I haven't been offered any position, and I don't speculate on those kind of things. I have a term of office till January 19th of 2018, and I intend to fulfill my term, and then, like I said, go off into the private sector and finally beat my wife 1 year in our marriage. We've been married 30 years in March. I'd like one time before I die to make more money in a year than she did. So that's going to be my goal after January 19th of 2018.
But he does have talent. That I will. Thank you, everybody. We have thousands. I have to go. We have thousands and thousands of people outside. You will be very impressed. Thank you all. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on that news conference. Obviously, big news. Donald Trump getting that endorsement from Christie, the governor of New Jersey, who was once running for president. You heard it here, right here on News Now. We know that Donald Trump has a rally that should start momentarily. Uh-oh, it looks like we've lost our feed, and now you're just looking at the Dow. So, why don't I put myself on the screen so that you guys can watch me as I read your comments? A lot of you guys were tweeting very actively. Because I asked you guys, because I had retweeted a tweet from Donald Trump 88 days ago that was speaking poorly of Chris Christie, but it does make sense. Obviously, they were competitors at the time. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat room. If anyone has any thoughts on that big announcement, make sure to let me know right here. You can tweet Samia Fox 10 or hashtag Fox News Now. Let's see what you guys said during that event. Boyd Cooper saying, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we all miss the donut man and are excited to hear this announcement. 404 Sex saying, Christie endorsement, Rubio on suicide watch. April Spicer just says, Trump with a thumbs up. Mr. Griff saying, they're just playing the game. Look at Clinton and Obama, referencing how 1 minute Trump and Christie are attacking each other, the next minute they are buddy-buddy. Rachel sharing a GIF that shows Donald Trump and Jeb Bush like high-fiving each other. Rachel saying, Donald Trump, he's friends with everybody. Let's see what else is being tweeted at me. Let's see. Ivan saying, Trump says whatever he needs to win. He hired Chris Christie as PR gun to shoot down Marco Rubio. Interesting. Let's see. John Lawrence Ferris saying, I like how Trump dismisses his $40 million case as if the allegations against him aren't founded in evidence. So John in the chat room, not too much of a Trump fan. Let's see. John Lawrence saying, the USA is a world leader. However, we have never been at a risk than not being. What is this? Okay, wait, sorry. I can't read, obviously. The USA is a world leader. I have, however, never been more of a risk. It's never been more at risk of not being respected because of the possibility of Trump 2016. Okay, that was from John Lawrence. If you guys have any other thoughts, please let me know in the chat room. Well, it's not really a chat room. I keep saying chat room because I miss the old days of the chat, but right now it's really just this Twitter feed. Let's see. Well, that's the big news, guys. We are waiting for the Donald Trump rally to start. In the meantime, though, we can rewatch Chris Christie's endorsement. So let me just pull that up for you. And we will rewatch it. In case you guys missed it the first time, it's already on our YouTube page. Already has a lot of views. stand by. Here it is. Christie's announcement, in case you missed it.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am proud to be here to endorse Donald Trump for President of the United States. I'm doing this for a number of reasons. First is that Donald and I, along with Melania and Mary Pat, have been friends for over a decade. He has been a good and loyal friend to our family, as we have been to he and his family. And over the years, we've had a lot of wonderful times together, done a lot of good together for not only the people of the state of New Jersey, but for many charities that we've worked with and on together. And I absolutely appreciate him as a person and as a friend. Secondly, I've been on that stage. I've gotten to know all the people on that stage. And there is no one who is better prepared to provide America with the strong leadership that it needs, both at home and around the world, than Donald Trump. He is, looking at the 5 people on that stage last night, the clear standout and the person who will do exactly what needs to be done to make America a leader around the world again. He'll provide strong, unequivocal leadership. He will do what needs to be done to protect the American people, first and foremost, both in the homeland and in creating jobs for this country. And he will make sure that people around the world know that America keeps its word again. Donald Trump is someone who, when he makes a promise, he keeps it. I've experienced that over my long friendship with him. And what the American people and our allies around the world are going to understand is that Donald Trump is someone who keeps his word, and that means America will keep its word again. Third, there is no doubt in my mind, and I've been saying this right from the time I entered the campaign, that the single most important thing for the Republican Party is to nominate the person who gives us the best chance to beat Hillary Clinton. I can guarantee you that the one person that Hillary and Bill Clinton do not want to see on that stage come next September is Donald Trump. They know how to run the standard political playbook against junior senators and run them around the block. They do not know the playbook with Donald Trump because he is rewriting the playbook. He is rewriting the playbook of American politics because he's providing strong leadership that's not dependent upon the status quo. And so the best person to beat Hillary Clinton in November on that stage last night is undoubtedly Donald Trump. And so I am thrilled to be here this morning to lend my support. I will lend my support between now and November in every way that I can for Donald to help to make this campaign an even better campaign than it's already been, and then to help him do whatever he needs to do to help to make the country everything that we want it to be for our children and grandchildren. He's a good friend. He is a strong and resolute leader. And he is someone who is going to lead the Republican Party to victory in November over Hillary Clinton, which is the single most important thing we can do. So I thank him for his friendship. I thank him for all the kindnesses that we've shared with each other over the years. But more importantly than that, I thank him for leaving the private sector, for seeing that there was a need for strong leadership in this country, and for being willing to step out of the private sector and come and offer himself for public service and for leadership in this country at a time when our party and our nation so desperately needs it. So I'm happy to be on the Trump team, and I look forward to working with him. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys, so that is a wrap on that. That is on our YouTube channel in case you want to see it. We're waiting for the rally to start and getting a live feed from there. In the meantime, we're going to listen to
their own business.
Let's hear what she has to say.
We stopped. One of the young men went in to buy something, and a car pulled up, and the driver yelled at them to turn down the music. And, you know, the young man just ignored him and maybe said something in response. So he pulled out a gun. He started shooting. And he murdered Jordan Davis. There is something so profoundly troubling about what is happening. So that's why I support the president's proposals for executive action. We need comprehensive background checks. We need to close the gun show loophole, the online loophole. We need to close what's called the Charleston loophole, where that young man, because of a loophole my opponent voted for, was able to get a gun after 3 days, even though the background check was not complete. We need to strip the immunity that the Congress voted for, including my opponent, giving gun makers and sellers immunity from any liability, the only industry in our country that has been given that. But the gun lobby has become so extreme that they won't even let Congress pass legislation prohibiting anybody on the no-fly list, and you're on it because there's some evidence you might have terrorist leanings or connections. They won't even let us use the no-fly list to prohibit people who are on it from buying guns. This is so indefensible. And it's got to be something we take on. And everything I've told you, background checks and the like, is supported not only by 92% of the American people, but by 85% of gun owners. The gun lobby intimidates elected officials. And we've got to stand up to that intimidation. You know, people talk about the powerful lobbies in Washington, Wall Street, big oil, the drug companies, the insurance companies. The most powerful lobby is the gun lobby. And it is distorting our Constitution, and it is creating an environment in which, on average, 90 people a day die from guns, 33,000 people a year. Now, I will need your help in this campaign, and if I am so fortunate, as your president, because I'm going to take them on every single chance I get. So, my friends, thank you. Now, let me ask you, I need your help. I need your help in the campaign. I need your help on Tuesday. I need you to convince as many other folks as you can to get out and vote either today or on Tuesday, because I want to tell you that if I am your nominee, I'm going to do everything I can, and I will be back to try to make sure Georgia begins moving toward the Democratic blue. Please help me. Thank you all. God bless you.
Hillary. All right, everybody. So the secretary's over here. President Obama was running in 2012. We'd be on conference calls, and Senator Harry Reid would get on the phone, and he would say, "Don't worry about Nevada." Well, today we're standing in the City Hall of Atlanta, and we're telling Secretary Clinton, "Don't worry about Georgia." God bless you.
All right, everyone, while we wait for the Donald Trump rally to start, let's go ahead and watch this mountain rescue. These are live images coming in from Skyfox. All right, guys, those of you wanting details on this mountain rescue, this is at 5050 West Andrea Lane near the Deem Hills Recreational Area. A 50-year-old man fell about 3/4 of the way up the mountain on the Ridgeline Trail. Technical rescue crews are hiking to make contact with the patient. I think we've already gotten to that point right now. This is near Happy Valley Road and Interstate 17. That message sent to us from the Phoenix Fire Department.
America leader again that can restore American jobs, that can restore American confidence, and Donald Trump is just the man to do it. America needs someone who's going to make sure that Hillary Clinton doesn't get within 10 miles of the White House. Donald Trump can do it. America needs someone who's going to make sure that when we give our word around the world that America's word means business, Donald Trump is just the man to do it. And here's what we don't need. We don't need another Washington politician in the White House, do we? Do we need a first-term United States Senator in the White House? Do we need a United States Senator from Florida who doesn't show up for work? Let me tell something to Marco Rubio. President of the United States is not a no-show job like you treated the United States Senate. Simple fact is this. America wants strong, tough leadership. America's tired of being walked on. America is tired of being treated second class around the world. We need a first-class president, and we're going to have it in Donald Trump. And all the political pundits and all the chattering class in Washington, D.C. want to tell you you're wrong. The American people, we the people are right, and we the people are supporting Donald J. Trump. Now listen, Texas has a big role to play on Tuesday. Is Texas going to be Trump country? Are you going to send a message to the Washington, D.C. establishment that you are tired of their failing the American people? Well, I'll be right clear with you. I joined this campaign because I care deeply about our country. I love our children, and I want the best for your children as well. And we need to have a leader who will once again stand up for the American people first, not the rest of the world first, America first. Donald Trump is that man. And last night you just saw one strong man on that stage, and that was Donald Trump. So Texas, you got a big job to do. You have a really big job to do. And I am proud and happy to be part of this team. I want Texas to be Trump country on Tuesday. And so ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce the next president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Folks, we love you. We love you. It's a movement. It's a movement. It's really a movement. Well, I want to thank everybody. First, I have to start by thanking Governor Christie because you know, I was telling the press a little while ago, everybody was really surprised. It was sort of a shocker. We kept it secret. Chris and I met the other day, and he said this whole thing, and he called it the same thing. Donald, I've never seen anything like it. It's a movement. I have never seen anything like it. So we shook hands, and I said, let's keep it as a secret for the people in Texas. Let's do it. And when we walked into that press room, they went, whoa. And then we walk in and you people went, whoa. So it's really good. And with all the people, we have a lot of endorsements happening. It's amazing when you're in #1 place for a long period of time, the endorsements are coming in. But the one I really was happy with is this one right here. So Chris, thank you. We love you, man. So we had a debate last night. Now, I have to say, because I don't hear it from pundits as much, some of the pundits are honest, and they say Trump won the debate and Trump did well. But some of these people are so dishonest. I mean, it's incredible. But on the online polls, where they have hundreds of thousands of people voting, we won every single online poll. We won Drudge, who, by the way, is a fantastic guy. We won the online polls. That means so much to me. Somebody says, what does that mean? When you have hundreds of thousands of people calling in, believe me, I can't have my secretary sitting there calling in to get a couple of extras. So that was an honor, and it's been an honor, and we've been winning those polls literally from the first debate. And obviously, something is going very good in the debates because the big poll is really the polls that are coming out. In Texas, they just came out with a poll that were effectively tied, the Emerson poll. And I have so many friends in Texas. We are loaded up with friends in Texas. And I think we're gonna surprise a lot of people, I'll tell you. We're going to surprise a lot of people, and it's going to be great. So I'll talk a little bit about the competition. Then we'll talk about our borders, which we will build the wall, and it will be a great wall. And can you only imagine your ex-president of Mexico, Vicente Fox? You see, that's the way other countries are used to talking to the United States. No more. No more. He couldn't believe that somebody would say Mexico has to do something. And by the way, it's that way with Japan. It's that way with India. It's that way with China. It's that way with Vietnam, a new one coming along. They want to be treated with tremendous respect, even though they don't treat us with respect. It's going to change, folks. It's going to change. It's not going to be this way anymore. So he dropped the F-bomb, and I said to myself, can you imagine if I said that? And nobody mentioned it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. For him, it's okay. I wouldn't use that. I would not go there, by the way. But when he did it, it was absolutely fine, because that's the way it is. Double standards. But here's the story. We're being ripped on trade by every nation that we do business with in the world. We are going to become so good. We are going to negotiate so strong and so tough. We're not going to have a $58 billion trade deficit with Mexico. We're not going to have a $500 billion trade deficit with China. $500 billion. Not going to happen. We're not going to be billions of dollars behind with Japan, and we're going to talk about all that in a second. But let's talk about our lightweight senator from Florida who's losing big in the polls. So I heard he was on television saying negative things. I see him. It all started about 3 or 4 weeks ago in New Hampshire, which I won. I love the people of New Hampshire. We won it big. We won it big. And we won South Carolina big, big, big. In all fairness, that was going to be your senator's place. He was going to win it. He said he's going to win South Carolina. And I won women, men, evangelicals, military, vets. I won everything. We won every category. And we won with Hispanics. I love the Hispanics. Because people that are in our country legally, they don't want our jobs taken away, and they don't want their jobs taken away. And I'm going to bring a lot of jobs back to this country. Remember that. But I saw with Rubio, and he's a nervous wreck, because here's a guy. He's a nervous basket case. Here's a guy. You had to see him. You had to see him backstage. He was putting on makeup with a trowel. No, I don't want to say that. I will not say that he was trying to cover up his ears. I will not say that. No, he was just trying to cover up. He was just trying to cover up the sweat that pours. I never saw. Did you ever see a guy sweat like this? So, a number of weeks ago, we were in New Hampshire, and I got to tell you, Chris was so wild what he did. That was one of the great prosecutions I've ever seen. And I'm standing in the middle, which, by the way, I've been for every single debate, the middle. And I said to CNN, I'm in the middle all the time, and I say to these networks, but CNN in this case, I said, so I'm in the middle because I'm number one. You're going to announce me as number one? Oh, no, sir, you're just going to walk on to, oh, really, good. So who knows you're in the middle? Big deal, right? But I watched Chris take a man apart, and I looked at him, and honestly, I thought he was going to die, Rubio. He was so scared, like a little frightened puppy. And he kept saying the Obama phrase over and over. So then I heard it once, and I said, that's fine. Big deal. I'm standing here. He's right here. Chris is over here. And Chris was sort of cool because he's like this. I couldn't do that. You know, I want to stand up sort of like straight, I don't know. But this looked like Perry Mason. That's what it was. And Chris started going into him. So he said the Obama phrase once. That was fine. Twice. I said, he just said that. That was strange, but that's okay, right? Twice. Then a third time. And I said it was like a robot. And then a fourth time and a fifth time, and I said, this guy's cracking up on us. And he was sweating so badly. I have never seen anything like it. It looked like he just jumped into a swimming pool with his clothing on. I've never. And I say to myself, we have tough people to negotiate with. We have Putin. We have the Chinese. We have wars that we're in that we are, by the way, we're going to build up our military. We're going to knock out ISIS. We're going to knock out ISIS fast. Remember the great days, General George Patton, General Douglas MacArthur. Do you think that they would even be thinking about ISIS? By the time they pick up the telephone, it's over. What is wrong? You know, we don't win anymore, and we're getting to that. But I have to finish with this clown over here. So I watched this, and I thought something bad was going to happen to him. And he got through it, but barely. I tell you what, barely. I was almost going to go over and hold him up. Now think of this, think of this. So we have Putin, and Putin's going to meet our president, and let's assume it's Marco. And let's assume it's Marco. No, I agree with you. We don't want him. Boo, boo. And Putin's sitting there waiting for a kill. And he knows all about Marco because when they put Marco on to refute President Obama's speech, do you remember that catastrophe? And he's like this, and we were, I need water, help me, I need water, help. And this is on live television. This total choke artist is refuting, and you know, I'll tell you, you know about sports. Do I love sports? We love sports, we're athletes. So, you notice in sports, almost always true, when you're a choke artist, you're always a choke artist. It doesn't really change. You know, sadly, the guy that misses the kick and the coach says, I'm going to give him another chance. Unfortunately, the following year, he misses the kick again. So choke artists, they choke, they choke. So what's going to happen is we look at this, and he goes in to see Putin, and he walks in, and he's soaking wet. And Putin looks at him and goes, what's wrong with this guy? This is going to be easy pickings, and believe me, it will be. But I'll never forget the scene, and then we're going to go to something else that's actually more interesting, but just remember this, really, really weak on illegal immigration, Marco, really weak. Totally in favor of amnesty, totally in favor of amnesty. Totally in favor. So he's getting the thing, and he's doing his speech, and I notice he's live television. You just don't see it. I mean, Nikki Haley did it last time, and she was good. At least she wasn't sweating like that. She was like, fine. She did say we're angry people. And when I was at the debate, they asked me about it. Are you and your people angry? And no, I was supposed to say, no, we're not angry. We're thrilled with the Iran deal. We're thrilled with all of the problems. We're thrilled with our education is terrible, with Obamacare, which is terrible. No, we're not angry at all. That's what. But they asked me the question, and I said, yeah, we're really angry. We are. And we're not angry people. We're not angry people, but we're angry at incompetence. All right, so I'll just finish off with incompetence. So he's making the thing, and I said, what's wrong with him? And then out of nowhere, he goes, on live television, he's our response. He choked, just like he did with Chris. He's a choker. He choked with Chris. And I watched it both times. But the one time I'm right next to him, and I looked at the puddle on the ground, and I said, what is that? What is it? I wanted to know, what is that? But this time, this wise guy, this lightweight, is going over, and all of a sudden, he's being drained, and he goes like this, remember? And he's off screen. I said, where is he? And then he comes back with water. And honestly, water's fine, but it should be in a glass. He's got the label of the company here, and he's drinking, and honestly, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. So we are going to beat guys like that. See, it's guys like that, and he's a nasty guy. I called him a nasty little guy, but I wouldn't say that because he's a nasty guy. And we don't need nasty. We don't need nasty. Honestly, there's no place for it. You know, there's no place. He said specifics on Obamacare. Let me tell you something. We're going to knock out Obamacare. And remember this. When we get the insurance companies who are taking care of all these people, I'm self-funding my campaign. I'm putting up my own money. So when the insurance companies come to me because they want to keep it the way it is, because, by the way, they're making a fortune, because it's like a monopoly in every state. I was watching in Texas, there's a practical monopoly because companies aren't allowed to come in very easily. They practically can't come in. So they said, oh, be more specific. I don't have to be specific. What's going to happen is you're going to create open bidding by getting rid of the borders around each state and the lines, restrictive lines around each state. You are going to have so much competition. You're going to have so much bidding that you can't really say it's one plan. You're going to have hundreds of different options. You're going to have hundreds of different plans. It's going to be so beautiful, and you're going to pay far less money. Far less money. So I want to just mention just a couple of words about Senator Cruz, who actually was, I thought he was better. You know, last night I thought the deal of the night was when I looked over to Rubio and I said, you remember, you're a choker. And we don't want chokers in our administration, I can tell. I said, you're a choker and you're a liar. And I have had, I've had a lot of difficulties with Ted because he does lies. You know, I've dealt with much tougher. A guy like Rubio's a baby, but a guy like Ted is tougher, I will tell you. Actually, he's tougher. And he's actually smarter, in all fairness. Ted is actually smarter. I have to give that to him. He's a smarter person than Rubio. But I deal with people. Last night it was mentioned, by the way, it was mentioned my father gave me $200 million. Oh, I wish. I'd be right now worth $500 trillion if that were the case. You know, the first thing I did, I get a call from my sister, who's a fantastic person, and then I get a call from my brother, who's a fantastic person. They said, hey, Donald, that's not true. Why did they say that? And he copied it out. You know, you have the failing New York Times. It's a failing newspaper, I hate to tell you. Like, seriously failing. And they wrote an article, and they put something in about $200 million. Believe me, I got very, very little, and I built it into many, many, many billions of dollars, and I'm very proud of it. But, and I just think we just have to correct the record. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. It's Rubio. That's what it. Unbelievable. But we like to correct the record. But you know, I spent a lot of time in Laredo, Texas. Laredo, right on the border. And I was invited by the border guards. And by the way, I got endorsed, talk about Chris, by Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And the one thing you know about Sheriff Joe, he's picking the toughest guy on the border. There's no games to be played with Sheriff Joe, who puts pink you-know-what on. his people that are there illegally. Sheriff Joe does not play games, and everybody wanted his endorsement, but the toughest one on the border was endorsed by Sheriff Joe. So, and I think it's incredible. I was called by our Border Patrol. Unbelievable people. I got to know them well. And they said, Mr. Trump, I was running, I was doing well. You know, since I started this whole thing, I've been practically #1 for the whole trip. Practically #1. And now we have big leads. Please, Texas, let's win Texas. I want to win Texas. But I was called by the border in San Francisco. Illegal immigrant 5 times came across the border and shot Kate. Jamil, his father became a friend of mine. He's an incredible father, incredible guy. His son was an unbelievable young boy. Good student, was going to go to college on a football scholarship, maybe Stanford, and he was shot in the face 3 times by a guy that did it because he was just told to shoot somebody. That's the only reason he did it. Just got out of jail. And you have the female veteran, 65 years old, recently in Los Angeles, raped, sodomized, and killed by an illegal immigrant. We're going to be different, folks. We're going to be strong. We're going to be smart. We're going to be tough. We're not going to play games anymore. We're not going to play games anymore. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.